Time for the Danny Kadota Show. What am I talking about here, man? It's good to see you, Danny. How are you?
Hey, Phil, I'm getting ready to yell hookup, but then I thought they would interfere with Pete and Marty's show.
Hey, people
They
love
did the
that,
old
by the
days,
way.
yeah. But yeah. Listen, you and I reflected back on this week, and it compelled me to put this out to you people in the audience. Um, and if you guys went to the show, or had gone to the prior show in Del Mar, or even the one out in Orange County, what did you get out of the show? Did you go for the deals? Did you go learn something? You know, um, I I have an old saying: if I can't learn something new every day, I'm not looking hard enough. And when you go to a show, specifically where we're looking for new, innovative products, those are the things that really get to me. Things that could impact their fishing that we can try out at least. To see if certain philosophies or certain products will work. But it's also it's a great social deal. It was good to see all our old friends. It's touching. For over the last 50 something years, that being around a lot of these people that have impacted my fishing life and career, and I've always wanted to pay that back to the industry. I've been blessed by it. Phil feels the same way. And so I want to get out of you guys online what your take is, what you go to the shows for, what you get out of it, what you're looking for. Maybe that will help channel some of the things for the industry too. Of course, a lot of the manufacturers and the retailers are looking to sell product, but everything changes. As much as we've had this great bluefin fishing, mahi fishing, stuff like that, I think we got our fingers crossed for something called an albacore. It's something that everybody comes out of the woodwork for. We have record numbers of sales, record numbers of people hitting the boats when we have albacore. Easy to catch, delicious to eat. So I want to hear your thoughts. We're going to be listening. I see the board lighting up already.
Yeah,
Phil.
let me
So
just.
we're going to take some of them, but again, want to channel it to. Well, I mean, you can talk to us about anything you want. If you got questions for anything, but if there's things that you saw at the shows or anything that touched you, I'd like to know, and we'll give you some feedback on it too.
That's great stuff. And, while we're waiting for some people to comment on the shows, I'll just check in with David Rosenthal, who's a great guy. He says, good evening to everybody. Danny, 4x4 Monster says, good evening. Wild Willie, good evening. We have a bunch of very polite, nice people in the
Perfect.
Friedman Adventure family, right,
That's
Danny?
awesome. Absolutely awesome.
I know you love that too
Oh,
because,
yeah.
I mean, the people in this industry are hardworking, decent, great, wonderful people.
Phil, just blessed, and I reiterate that all the time. Blessed being in this industry, doing something that we love with people that are absolutely awesome. People in general, especially from our industry here in Southern California, have impacted fishing and development of products, innovation, techniques. I mean, I'm very proud of our people, our skippers, our manufacturers and things that we have gravitated and absolutely taken and improved everything in our fishing arsenal. So, we want to get to you and get some specifics down on what your take on the show was. I'll give you my feed as we go on what I look for in shows, but I think we're going to take it. We'll hit the board with it. And
Yeah,
see
yeah,
what goes on here.
and if you have a suggestion, like you'd like to see more of something, right, Danny? I mean, we're open
Oh,
to
absolutely.
anything like that,
Absolutely.
right?
I could take it any direction. Um, Obviously, doing these shows, I got hit a lot, and then Phil and we did a show with Rick Grover at Anglers Marine.
Hey, that was great. How'd you
Oh.
when you rewatched it? What'd you feel like?
Oh, my gosh.
I loved it.
Well,
I thought you guys
he
were
was one
great.
of the greatest guys anyway. But he was probably the top, bass boat dealer in the country, and it was at a time when all of us were catching these big fish at Castaic and Casitas, and California was in the limelight, and he outfitted our boats like you can't believe. But he's got so much experience and so much knowledge about it. We were blessed being around guys like that. We also got to do some other fishing events and things over time that I think Rick and I and a whole nucleus of guys from the state of California, we were able to sample and fish lakes like Lake Matthews that were closed. We got to fish Diamond Valley several times before it opened. So the word is really blessed people. And to have people like Rick Grover and guys like that in the industry to work with, it was truly just a great time.
Yeah, that was really something great. Hey, Danny and I also want to send out our thanks to everybody who pushed us up to nearly 2 million views. I wouldn't have thought that was ever possible, Danny. Thanks
Hey,
for coming on board, making that possible.
We're just starting, Phil.
Yeah, we
We're just
are,
starting.
right?
We got a lot to talk about. It never ends, and that's something that I've always contended to. Every single time I go fishing, I make it a point to learn something new. Nobody knows everything. If you do, then you're done. You're absolutely done.
100%.
You have to be able to learn something new. I know that on our captain's trip we did last year with Pat Conklin, my God, I learned a lot. But you have to keep that to keep an edge.
Absolutely. And I see a lot of new people on here. Wild Willie says, love to see the longfin come back within the fishing zone. Danny, let me ask you a couple questions about that. I'm telling you, I'm the one who's been talking about albacore the last several years and getting it wrong every single year. But there's a buzz going on around here. Like Mark Paisano Jr. walks up to me today and says, I think we're going to see some albacore. Now, nobody knows. You got to point your finger upstairs.
Yeah.
Only the big guy upstairs knows for sure.
Yeah.
But there are certain indicators. And so let me throw some of these at you with your vast knowledge and just see how you feel. So number one, cooler water temperatures. We're starting to see that water cool down. That's something that albacore like, right?
Absolutely, and you could see this happen overnight. I think I told the viewers we had an example like in 1983 with El Nino. The biologists, and this is where I've given the biologists the sign because
I'm glad it's that sign and not another one.
Oh yeah, it was a different
Yeah,
finger,
right.
Okay, anyway. In '83 with the El Nino, the kelp did die along the kelp here, along the coastline here. And it was their determination that the ocean's going to die. Well, yeah, the water's hot. It's different. We had yellowfin, we had Dorado, we had the big eyes up here close. In fact, it was so warm that the long range boats, I can remember, and I think I mentioned this before, I can remember being off inside the Coronados in Point Loma, where the Royal Polaris was being circled by an Avon. I should have got a picture of that.
You should have.
Frank would have loved that. But and it was great because we got to see the big ragu.
It
at
was
the
good
show.
to see him, man.
Give old
Really good.
Frank a big hug, and he's one of the pioneers and one of the guys that blazed and took that long range business to a different level.
100%.
But jokingly, we can do this. But that year there was nothing down below. It was so hot, and so they said the oceans were going to die. So some people, believing the biologists, panicked out, and we were able at that point to get into the H&M landing, and not knowing what was going on, I think it was a matter of about 7 months, 8 months. I was on the east end of Clemente at Little Flower, and I'm shooting over the island, listening to these albacore stops going on Mushroom, the butterfly, and so that's 1 day range already, And I'm going, holy smokes. I couldn't wait to get down there. This is, late May, early June, and it just never stopped. So you went from hot water to 2 record albacore years.
Well, we're kind of looking at something really like that.
And it could very easily happen. I'm looking more toward seeing if we have a biomass of anchovy. But fish will adapt. They have fins, they'll adapt. They're going to find something if they get on the sardines or whatever it might be.
What about saris? They feed on that
Saris
big
too.
time, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of things, So we just don't know. I don't think the bluefin will go anywhere. I mean, there's been so much squid, and they've already seen them down by Colonette and in various different areas. I think they got their noses down in the mud eating squid. Of course, they don't have to surface if they're chowing down on the squid down in the deep. There's no reason for them to come up on top and splash around. So, I think we have a very good opportunity to get two. In the same manner, we had big eyes and albacore in some of those years too. So they kind of coincided, and you'll see them swim together.
Absolutely. I'm going to ask you another question. Just going to catch up on some comments here. Good evening, guys. Says Randy Gonzalez. Fishing is starting to kick up. Nice to see your show on tonight. Jan6 123. Where is Sam De La Torre? I don't know. Where is Sam De La Torre? I bet he's at Island Fishing Tackle. Sam, are you out there? Are you awake? Sam, Naughty Boy 78. Hi, Captain Kadota. Thanks for sharing your thoughts again. Randy Gonzalez is asking me if I remember the twilight trips on the Native Son. Of course I do, Randy. Man, those were really, really special. He says he misses those days and wish we could get them back again. Randy, there's lots of great fishing ahead, man, and you'll be able to join Danny and myself. We have charters this year, all kinds of great charters, and I do a lot of surf fishing, and Danny loves to teach fishing. We'll be at Santa Ana River Lakes on April the 15th, and we'll be teaching kids how to fish for trout, how to tie knots. That's going to be a lot of fun. Danny's going to be at the Redondo Rod and Gun Club a week from tonight, doing a live show there in front of a big audience, and then Bill Wilkerson, the owner-operator of the Horizon and Malahini, will be there to give a seminar on his operation. So we got a lot of great stuff ahead,
we're
Danny.
gonna have a blast. Got to meet Bill for the first time. Turns out that we all came out of the same hood.
Yeah,
in
you guys
LA.
grew up really close to one another.
It's amazing in that area of LA, especially between the Dorsey, LA High area. We had the Kagawa brothers. I had my brother Steve, who's still running boats, myself. We had industry people, but we had Bobby Yoshihiro. His daughter now was running a boat.
Robin, I talked to her today.
Yep. But and there are a lot of tackle guys that came out of there. I remember Glenn Oshima, who was with Daiwa. there was just so many tackle people. That Casey, I think, used to be on the barge.
Casey, and he's lobster
There's
fishing.
so many guys. Yeah, there's so many.
I saw him. Speaking of Sam De La Torre, I saw him at Island Fishing Tackle. Man, that was like a really cool reunion. I hadn't seen him for 30 years, I'll bet.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
But, Wilkerson, Joe Green, we had a lot of friends that, we knew, and Joe, we did shows with Harry Kojima, Let's Go Fishing.
Yeah.
And he came, he was over at LA High, and he basically lived almost straight down my street from, the Dorsey neighborhood into LA High neighborhood. So it was really a close-knit group of people. But it's one thing we all had in common is we all fished.
Yes.
And most of us took it to a different level.
Yes.
And so we were very blessed by that, so.
Absolutely, 100%.
It was awesome, just seeing these people and finding out that it was a surprise. I didn't know Bill grew up there.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So that was pretty cool.
Danny, I got a question for you because I get this question all the time, and this is one that you can definitely answer. People say, if the albacore show up, does that mean no more bluefin? What's the answer?
No, they'll be around. I think they're feeding on different things. Plus, we're talking about a size of bluefin now that, it's going to be totally different grades. There's probably mixed fish. There's always going to probably be mixed fish. But I think it has to do with the feed. There's so much squid to sustain these fish all year round now. In the past, you would say, oh, yeah, in the fall, they'll head back across the ocean to Japan, and they'll come back. Well, why? Why? Phil and I certainly aren't going to go 100 miles if, they're handing out, candy bars right outside the door here.
Mike Morrison, he's out
Mike
here
Morrison,
right now.
yes, exactly.
Yeah, there he is.
Exactly.
Get away from me with that Milky Way, you creep. You know I'm on the keto.
Yeah. So, it's only time's going to tell, Mother Nature, I see, my belief is with the cooler water we'll see them. I'm just hoping for that, the biomass of bait, the chovies.
Wild Willie says the bluefin are here to stay. Do you agree?
I agree. They'll be here till they decide not to, or till they get to the size where we can't land them. Like they had up at the Channel Islands back there. When I was still riding a boat, those things. And when they got to 1,000
They were up
pounds,
near 1,000 pounds.
Oh yeah. Good luck.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Because when they fish those fish, correct me if I'm wrong, on the East Coast, they're in real shallow water. When you're fishing 1,000-pound bluefin where there's no bottom, there is a bottom, but virtually there is no. That's a whole different game.
And I could tell you a story. This is a true story. A friend of Taka's, Taka, who I got the Mustang from. He was a farmer up in Ventura, Well, he had a beautiful yacht. He had a 44 Pacifica, right? And he had all these big gold reels and the whole deal. And that particular year, he had talked about his big international 130 got emptied. And we're going, okay, we're just talking, I are looking at each other going, that little lever, you got to push that up a little bit. You can, well, we had to apologize because all of a sudden these 800 to 1,000-pound bluefin were getting caught by the seiners. Some of them were going right through those old nets because they hadn't fished those things in so long. The nets were rotted. But I can remember having school trips with LA City schools during the week, going up and down the channel by the prison. And I remember looking across the channel. I go, what the heck is that? So I pull the glasses out and I see this big mound on the back of a 3/4-ton truck. About that time, they're taking it, they loop the tail, and they're jacking this thing up on those big posts that they have at the commercial fish markets. We call them the 40 thieves.
Yeah, right.
Excuse me. And I looked at that and I go, holy smokes. So I think my brother was driving the boat, but I was on this school trip. We shot across the channel, went right up, and it weighed 8 something.
Wow.
It was unbelievable, Phil. Filled up the back of that 3/4
That is
truck,
amazing.
with the tailgate down, mind you.
That's
With the
crazy.
tailgate down. It
That's
was
crazy.
Unbelievable.
Hey, folks,
yeah.
hit that like button, please. We would appreciate it if you do that. What the show tonight is, you can take us anywhere you want to go. You want to talk about the Fred Hall Show, the PCS show. Danny would like to know what you liked about it, what you'd like to see, why you go to the shows. Is it the community? Is it the new tackle? What is it exactly? But interspersed throughout the evening, I'm going to be asking Danny questions about albacore because he is uniquely qualified to answer those questions. Wild Willie is up in Morro Bay, and he says, we still find these bluefin up here in Morro Bay, and our water temp's way cooler up here. So what does that tell you?
Yeah. No, they adapt. They'll adapt. They're going to be as long as the bait's around, they'll be around. There's no reason for them to go anywhere. They're not going to go across the Pacific because they're supposed to go to Japan. They're going to stay right where it's. I mean, come on, Phil. You and I, if there's a stack of candy bars right there, are we going to go to the store, drive to the store to get it, or just going to reach over on off the table and grab it and open it up and bingo?
Yeah. Do you think that's what it is? Just the feed? I mean, because. Sometimes it just seems like animals, like the evolution of their migrations and stuff, they just know to migrate. And do you think maybe they migrate because there's feed on the other side, and now that there's feed available here?
I think they know. I think instinctively, for some reason, they know that there's a big enough biomass of bait, in different areas to support them. Otherwise, they're not going to particularly get to that size. They don't get there. I used to tell that to the guys with fishing the largemouth bass. They don't get that big eating wood and plastic.
Yeah, right, exactly.
There's things that are inherent in their character that keeps them from being caught. And anybody that's fished bluefin long enough know that with bluefin, it takes a hot bait. They got the best eyes out of all the tuna. So there's things that you have to do and you have to implement to catch those that you don't do with albacore and yellowfin when they want to die. A lot of times they get stupid.
Right, exactly.
So, they know.
Daniel says he worked with Casey for a very long time, the lobsterman. So here's a guy that loves Casey also.
He was also at the Redondo Beach bait bars for years.
Yeah, he was.
Too, right?
Yeah, I remember him, man. I mean, when I was a kid, I think he was there.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
That's 50 years ago,
Yes.
man.
Yes.
That's brutal, isn't it? 4x4 Monster. They haven't gone back to Japan since Fukushima. What do you think about that?
Yeah, would you too? Do you
Do you think
dig
that
the
has
radiation?
Does it have anything to do with it?
It may have something to do with the bait supply too.
Yeah.
It may have killed off the natural bait supply.
Yeah.
But just the fact that the squids, and we saw them there in the fall. Tremendous volume of squid all over.
Yes.
The banks all the way down the coast, down from Collinet down below. So
yeah, I know.
There's really no reason for them to travel there.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. And more than likely, they've gotten a lot fatter, haven't they?
Oh, absolutely.
So,
because they're not burning the calories traveling back and forth to Japan.
That's true also.
They're packing around right there, just feeding.
I didn't even factor that in.
Just like sitting in a lounge chair, hand me another, popsicle and You got it made. Why travel all the way when you're right there? You got it right in your hands.
You know, we're talking about the animal kingdom and migrations and stuff. Tonight there's a grunion run. You know what I love about? I love a lot about it, and I'll probably be too tired to walk down there tonight. I should.
Down at Cabrillo?
Well, no, I'm right there at Surfside, so I can just walk
that's
out the
right.
front
Yeah,
door,
yeah, yeah.
and I still
Yeah,
don't do it because
yeah.
I'm tired. I'm an old man. I'm up at 3:30 in the morning. But Danny, before there's any sign of grunion, before there's anything, there's 12 blue herons lined up, and their noses are pointed out to sea. And there's all these birds, and it's just like I look at that and I go, "How the hell did they know?" But they know.
They're looking at their calendar. It's high tide. It's high tide at so and so time. They had a tremendous program right here at Cabrillo Beach, and we used to take our kids over there.
Yes.
And they would give them a baby food jar with the sand and the eggs. And then once they do the film, the spiel, the whole deal, then the group walks down. It's escorted. You're escorted down to the beach, and you take that little baby food jar, put the salt water in it, you shake it, and you'd watch these things hatch. It was unbelievable. And then they would take it and they would dispense it into the water to do it safely so all the babies would go back in. But what a phenomenal program. What a phenomenal program. So
Wild
pretty neat to
Willie.
see. Yeah.
Wild Willie has a question. I can take part of this, but I'll throw it your way first. He says, "What was it like 30 years ago? The bluefin on our coastline." Well, let's just take San Clemente Island. Did you catch bluefin tuna at San Clemente? What was that like?
Yeah, it was.
How big were they?
They were probably school-sized fish.
Yeah.
And I mean 12 to 20-something pound fish. Occasionally, you'd see some bigger ones, but most of it was that smaller school size. And that was a challenge. That was light line, small hooks, hot green chovy, and you'd have to throw 30, 40 baits to get bit. And so it was a very prestigious thing to do, is hook a bluefin and land it back in those days on the 15 and 12 pound. I went as far as go down to 8 to get bit once.
I know.
And a
People
number
don't
8
believe
hook.
that,
Yeah.
right?
No. But,
And a number 6 hook,
and
right?
a 6 hook
Or
try
small.
a number 8 hook.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So we did that to get bit. Unfortunately, like the one I got was small. But that was a challenging part of it. So. Beyond that, now everything seems a lot simpler. Our reels have improved. You got these beautiful, you can use some of these bass reels now that have the same drag pressures. You've got a great casting ability, and you could do that with some of these scaled down reels where we adequate equipment compared to today's standards.
No question. So my story is Eddie Leland. You know Eddie.
Mm-hmm.
He's around a lot now. Of course, he's in a battle with cancer. He's doing better all the time. Thank
that's
God.
good.
Thanks for all your support. So Eddie's working for a guy named Joe Schilling. I don't know if you knew him or not. Did you know Joe?
Joe was running the Freedom back in those days.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, he was on the Mascot 4 or 6. This was in, I want to say 74.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Eddie worked 30 straight days. And we were seeing bluefin a lot in the Santa Monica Bay. So, I mean, a stone's throw out of Redondo, everybody. It was a short run. And Eddie was burnt. Eddie had some issue, like he had to go to a Baptist. I don't know what it was. He had to do something. So Schilling said, "Hey, kid, you're working tomorrow." I'm like 15, and I've never gaffed a bluefin or anything. And it's me and Joe, 2 of us. And there's 60 people on the boat, and they'd been seeing the bluefin. We go out, and we don't get to the Topaz Rock Jetty, which is, you know where that is. It's right there. And there's foamer after foamer of bluefin, and they are biting. And they're biting the 30, and they're biting the 40.
Holy smokes.
So Joe takes me and goes, "Get on the tank and just throw it where I tell you to throw it." And he's gaffing, fishing, running around. I mean, it was bedlam. It was absolutely crazy. We ended up with 100+ bluefin tuna. Eddie wanted to kill me because the one day he took off, it was
my
wide
God.
open. And I remember Joe Schilling taking a 15-year-old kid, me,
Yeah.
and putting me in the wheelhouse and saying, "Here's how you drive the boat. Here's how you put it in gear. Here's how you take it out of gear. Just do circles while I clean fish for the next
Holy
18 hours,"
smokes.
or whatever it was.
Holy smokes.
And so I'm thinking, man, this is the coolest thing I've ever done in my life. I'm driving
my
a
God.
boat. This is so cool. But Danny, I mean, people don't believe me. It was like I mean, the lifeguards were basically saying, "You guys are too close to the beach, and we're catching bluefin right there at the Topaz Rock Jetty." Oh my God, it was just unbelievable. Redondo Special. I think Dipley might have been running it. He was
my
there. Dipley came in. I think he bowed Schilling and got Schilling
Well,
fired up.
that's no surprise there. Yeah. Way to go, John. Again.
So bluefin has a history here in SoCal,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then
Oh,
if you go way
absolutely.
back to Zane Grey
my
in the
God.
late 1800s.
Well, you talk about where all the first kites came out. You know, people
Yeah,
think they were
talk
from
about
back
that.
east. Are you kidding me? It was right here in the channel, folks. And again, once again, innovation. Where's it come from? You know.
Well, where was sport fishing born? Avalon, right?
Absolutely.
It was born
And
there.
let's take it one step
Go ahead.
further. What's
By the way, you
us-
got a ton of people watching the show
Oh,
tonight.
okay, great.
We thank you all. Hit that like button, my friends.
Let me preface it by this. I'm going to start out, give you a little history too. There's a guy named Mario Paradich, and he built what's called a power block. And what that power block did was it enabled purse seiners to pull their nets with this big block. They had it up on the booms, and it would be able to pull these big nets that when they'd circle the school of yellowfin, they were able to pull it with this
What
power
did they
block.
do before that?
But they'd have to probably pull it by hand. Phil.
Wow.
You know, so it was brutal. You
Yeah.
know, especially nets that big to get them closed in time.
Yeah.
And fortunately, the yellowfin usually stayed within the thermocline, so they wouldn't sink out. Now, with that, what that did too was, so that allowed for yellowfin and skipjack to be caught because they usually stayed up above the thermocline, right? But then the premium fish that we know of and we're hoping to see is albacore. The problem with the albacore is they'll go and put their noses down in the mud. They'll go shoot straight down below those nets, below the thermocline. So to keep them, you know, get them on the surface, it started with all these bait boats and where you're fishing in a rack and they're chumming anchovies. Well, what happened was now that they had this net to wrap, you know, these yellowfin and skipjack, it also allowed them to wrap anchovies. All you had to do is make the mesh small enough
Yeah.
where the anchovy sardines could get through it.
Right.
So now you can wrap this, you can make bait. They would load the bait boats. They have these wells that would just keep tons and tons of live bait. They chum it. The guys would get them on the lift poles from the racks, okay, on either the squid or bait pole. You know.
And somebody out there may not know what a rack is. What is a
Well,
rack?
it's a rack that sits down real low to the water. You usually we used to wear hip boots, and then, you know.
Are you actually
with the
underwater
squid-
with your feet?
No,
or?
no. It usually stays just above.
Yeah.
You know, but it can, you know,
Yeah,
depending
right.
on the swell. But you know, the chumming the spots and the albacore come raining on. But they're the premium price fish, so that was the big. But with the ability to catch that anchovy for bait, what it did was, this is why, and everybody can thank them for it. Thank Mario Perez for this. This is why we have the live bait industry in Southern California, because now we're able to take those smaller mesh nets, wrap them, take that chovy and sardines, put them in receivers and cure them. And look at this. There's nobody in the world that has the bait operation that we have down in San Diego.
No,
and here in
way.
LA, and all the way up our coast. And that's where the history comes from on that, folks.
It's an
So
amazing thing,
always
isn't it?
Amazing what comes out of the minds, you know, of our fishermen and how it morphed into this huge, huge thing.
Big Duke X, or I'm going to say Big Duke 10. Thanks for joining us, Big Duke. Any thoughts on half-day boats getting into the larger bluefin on a regular basis? Is that possible?
It's possible, but it depends on where those fish are at. You know, I mean, they would have to be, well, I don't know about the larger, but I can remember catching bluefin out of Redondo.
Well, yeah, that story I just told.
Outside, yeah. Just outside the harbor, right outside the canyon right
Yeah.
there. I even got one on a red tide where I'm looking at it, I go, you got to be kidding me. No, put a sinker on, go below, just drop it down. And, you know, you drop it down and boom, and I go, oh, you got to be kidding me. Red tide.
Wow, that's
So we've
crazy.
seen- and that was right outside Redondo too.
So you saw this red tide, and everybody probably said, there's no way
Yeah,
we're going to
forget it.
catch anything today.
But they told us, you know, put a sinker on, get down below it. And
Did you catch several or just
no,
some?
I just had that one. I remember getting that
That's
one.
a great one, man. I like that. Fish Guy says, I remember back in the mid to late 90s, the albacore bit fairly consistently in those years at a surface temp of 58 or 59 degrees, with bluefin biting for someone from time to time also. That's a little cool for albacore. They do bite in that water,
Yeah,
though.
they'll
He's
bite in that
absolutely
water.
right,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
They
because
do like
we would-
that 62, 63, 64 water,
But
right?
you know, at the end of the summer, when we were done in San Diego in September, we would run back up there to Pedro, take our stern off, and some guys just had racks that hung over, but on the Mustang, that whole stern lifted off, like our loading doors, loading gates on the side. The whole stern lifted off, and we had brackets on the stern, and that we had a rack that went clean across the stern. And it was just sitting off the water about that high. So your exhauster coming out, you'd have to wear hip boots to keep from getting soaked.
Yeah.
And then we put a canopy because if we were fishing a squid, you didn't want if the squid came out and hit you in the head. If you weren't wearing a helmet, it'd split your head wide open.
Yeah, exactly. You could
we
die
had a
almost.
canopy up
Yeah.
on top of the bait tank, and so
So you say a squid, somebody out there is thinking it's a real squid. It's not.
a big heavy metal head. A lot of the old ones from Japan were made out of bronze, and it's just a pick. So here it is. It's shaped like this. Here's the head, and the pick shaped like that. And just the pressure, and it'd have usually just a white feathers on it. It hit the water, and they're on it. These albies would be on it.
No barb.
You hit your pad, and you just throw it on. And then as it's coming up, you drop it, and the hook pops out, and it lands on the deck.
And then back in the water
You're
again.
back in the water, and you bit. I mean, it's fast and furious.
It's fun, isn't it?
Oh, you get amped.
Yeah,
And
it's
you don't realize how
exhilarating.
much except when you wake up the next morning. I was very young and I still couldn't move. I was aching so bad.
I know, but
you
you-
get so pumped, your adrenaline gets going so fast, you don't feel the pain till.
I know. And then
Till later.
once you start again, the pain all goes away.
it's- yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, it's so
Another
cool.
owie, another Excedrin.
Wild Willie, late 80s, early 90s, the albacore and the bluefin were biting together, right?
That's right.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely,
right. We've had it.
100%.
So that could very easily happen here, folks.
I'm hoping that
Very
is
easily
exactly
happen.
what's
Yep,
gonna
exactly.
happen.
Yeah.
Wild Willie, you're talking the Central Coast, right? And Wild Willie says, yeah. Fish Guy, I didn't get there until the 90s. Wild Willie, Fish Guy, back in 91, I was on the Big Game 90, and we were out of San Diego, 20 minutes, and we hooked up on albacore. Man, that's close, man.
I got to tell you, in
I don't remember catching albacore that close to.
Oh no! I'll
Point
tell you
Loma.
what.
Do you?
At Point Loma, yeah, we had some. We had
Yeah,
some
like
outside.
20 minutes?
Yeah. Out just up on the 302, up and through that area. We had some really good bites in through there. But I can recall it was '84, the year after El Nino. We had that good albacore year. Those fish came in the channel here, and in the fall, that's when we got those big ones. And so I can remember my galley girl, Fran Kennedy, who also had a captain's license, but Franny, I put her on with Russ Iser, and Russ ran the first string.
Yeah.
And Franny got I think it still holds today, a 75-pound
Wow.
albacore and 20-pound. I think it still holds as a world record.
What's your biggest albacore?
Oh, no, it's nowhere near that.
Yeah, me
Or
either.
maybe in the 50-something, 60.
Yeah, I don't even think I have that.
50-somethings, yeah.
I'm going to guess my biggest is like 38 or something
Yeah.
like that. I'm just,
No.
as a guess, I don't remember catching a giant albacore. That big, that bite we had here. Why don't you talk about that? Because that was an incredible bite here in the Catalina Channel. How big were those fish? Up to 90, weren't
They
they?
were huge.
Yeah.
Well, that was when Franny got them.
Oh, okay.
That was 84.
Yeah.
That was 84. It's unbelievable. Even it's funny. We brought the Cherokee Geisha up to Wilmington, put it on the ways at Nichols Yard, and we had the boat work done. On the way back down, this is in the late fall, my grandma wanted to take a ride. She was in her mid to late 80s, and so we had her standing in the stern. It was a trolling rod, but she ended up bringing it in, and that was like a 58-pounder.
Wow, that's
For
a
her,
nice
it was
one.
Unbelievable, but yeah, unbelievable. So those fish from here, they were still around, and this is in the fall. This is after we pulled.
Yes.
After San Diego was done, after we came up
Yes.
and done, and they were headed back down after we did the boat work. It was on its way back down to do the whale watching in San Diego, and there were still fish around. So
And Danny,
you just never know.
as I remember, those big fish were biting like 20-pound, right? They wouldn't bite the heavy
20
line.
pound is what Franny. That's
Or-
what
or
she,
even
that's what line
less.
class she owns. Yeah.
I mean, try to catch a 60, 70,
Yes.
80-pound albacore on 20. That's a feat.
Well, even more so, it was a jig master with a glass rod.
I'm
That's
telling
what
you.
we had then. So
Right.
that's even more incredible.
That was an amazing bite, wasn't it?
was.
And of
It
course, I went the day that it all shut off.
Yeah, you're the guy.
Yeah, I'm always the guy. Are you kidding? You can always point at me.
Oh, good.
Trolling speed for albacore. I'm curious. What do you troll at? 7 knots, 6.5, 7?
Actually, it could be anywhere from 5 to 7 knots. you
Okay.
know. When we commercial fished,
Yeah,
it was even slower.
yeah,
And we were pulling a lot of short lines because the idea is to get them on the boat, and you wanted them on the hand lines. You just put
Yeah.
on the boat lines. But when they came to the boat and they ate that's the best, folks. When they eat the squid, and it's when you're not pouring the bait on albacore like you would on yellowfin. You're throwing ones, and it's all on the downwind corner, but you get those things frenzied up. And then,
What is the downwind corner?
okay, so the wind's coming. Okay, the boat is, here's the boat. This is the bow, okay? It's the bow, this is the stern. The wind's coming this way. Well, every boat has a different idiosyncrasy. That's something to think about when you go out on any boat that you fish. Typically, the long-range boats will drift backwards like this,
Stern.
stern first,
Yeah.
very slow. With the Mustang, where there was no keel, which was awesome because it walked the fish. So the wind's coming this way at us, so it would drift like this. So as we're throwing the bait on the downwind corner here, those fish would come in across the stern. So the stern was the place to
Right,
be.
right.
And so, like I said, you're putting the bait on the downwind corner. On some of the long range boats, if you're in a drift, a lot of times you throw it in the center, you watch. By the time it's backing up, the bait is already right here.
Yeah.
So many of you have fished long range boats. If you throw on the downwind corner, your line will probably be about midsection as you're drifting away because
Yeah.
you're backing up to it. So, you have to know every boat has a different idiosyncrasy, the way we call it the way it walks, but the way it drifts.
Yeah.
Okay. And
Sometimes you
You
can go
have
up to
to
the bow
understand
right?
now on those type of boats, I was just getting ready to say that.
Yeah.
Because you are drifting that way and it's backing up, that bait will go under the boat, follow the bait up to the keel, and most of the time you'll find me, and a lot of times if it's crowded, I go up to the bow, and you'll see those things flashing under the
Oh,
bow.
yeah,
Because
right.
as the bait's drifting out from under the boat, those fish are picking it off. So, I like going up there because there's nobody up there for the most part, but I think people are starting to catch on. But knowing the way the boats drift has all to do with where and what section on the boat you drift. That just comes from being on different boats and knowing each individual idiosyncrasy. The Drake crafts don't have a keel, so they drift, they walk beautiful. The Ditmar Donaldsons have a keel, and you're talking about the Prowler and those type boats. And they have a different drift rate, as do the fiberglass boats and the long range boats. So, knowing the way that the boat drifts has to do with when you go into an albacore stop, it'll tell you where you should fire your bait. Like I said, on the Mustang, it was on the downwind corner because it's sucking those fish right to you as you're drifting. You're going forward. You're walking the fish. But if you're in a long range boat, a lot of times it's backing up. A lot of times you might want to make your cast straight midsection from the stern. By the time it drifts, it gets to about the upwind corner, and that's what the fish will be
This
coming
is
to.
such
Or
great advice.
if you're in the stop a long time, go up to the bow, folks, because that bait will start traveling up the keel, and you'll see these little flashes under the bow, and you just get a bait that goes down and away, and it's boom, and you're all by yourself up there.
Yeah. In fact, sometimes you can be looking like, to port, and you'll hear a splash, and you turn around, and you can see the
yeah.
boil, man.
Oh, yeah.
And you're like,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
shoot, man, they are
Yeah.
up here.
Yeah.
They are up here. Go
Exactly.
ahead. Yeah.
No, but that's one of the advantages to knowing all the different idiosyncrasies, and each boat has a different drift rate, and the hot spot on where to hook those fish. So
Such
it's
great
a matter
advice.
of knowing your boats and where to fish. It's not the same spot every time. So you'll see, oftentimes you guys see everybody just jamming to the downwind corner, but it's like I said, a lot of times it's better to cast mid-stern because by the time it gets upwind, it's just coming across that upwind corner, because it's backing up into it. So they all have a different drift rate.
4x4 Monster says jack poling is intense, and it is, isn't it? It's so much fun.
You know what? You'll jack pole with commercial fish. You'll do it till you physically hurt yourself. And I can remember, even at the young age, it was probably my 20s. I couldn't even get out of the bunk the next morning. But like you're lifting about, a half ton of fish. It's amazing. Just it's crazy, but it's a lot of work. But you're so amped up, you don't realize it until you run out of Bengay.
Yeah, exactly. As Danny watches me stand up and almost fall on my butt. He was trying to stop from laughing. But all right, Wild Willie says, Wild Willie, let me get to that. Oh, yeah, up here in 84 out of Port St. Louis, we were hooking up on albacore 20 to 60 pounds. They always had those big fish up there in Morro Bay, up around that area,
and
right?
We always had boats like the El Dorado, and I can remember El Dorado going up, and Eddie McEwen.
Oh yeah,
McEwen go up, and I think even Brian and Sammy took the Pacific Queen up one year. I fished with them one year. We had those big ones where you can only get a couple in those big ice chests. They were huge.
Wild Willie is really contributing to tonight's show. He loves fishing with a Jigmaster 500. He's laughing about the old days when we used to do that.
Yeah, that was at the time that was it. What can I tell you? If you had a Jigmaster 500 with a Newell spool, you had it made.
Absolutely. Wild Willie also says that downwind gives you the best drift. He thinks that's the best drift. Fish Guy, we used to run toward the donut, and often the first temp break at least 58 degrees held fish. Dennis, looking back, used to run boats out of Burgess. He'll tell you that Morro Bay albies bit in that temperature. Absolutely. Yeah, no, I didn't mean to suggest they don't bite in that temperature. They do, yeah. 58 degrees, and Dennis, looking back.
Yep. We used to call him Murray.
Exactly.
That was his code name.
Yeah.
On the boats.
Murray, I worked with him and Dipley on the Grande, I think. Yeah, maybe, right? I think it was the Grande.
Yeah.
That was a wild time, let me tell you. Those guys. And we saw Murray on our trip here recently on the Freedom, right?
That's right.
That was great to see him.
Oh, man, it was good to see all those guys.
Yeah, it sure was, man. That was really a lot of fun. All right, Yellowtail 69, Wasabi caught lots of tuna on the Cherokee Geisha with Captain Butch. Why did that boat smell like fuel toward the bunks?
I hate to say it, maybe they had a fuel leak.
It had to be something like that, right?
Yeah. The boat, when we got it, it was in mothballs. It was called the Chubasco originally.
Yes.
Lee Palm had it.
But I went on that on a long-range trip once.
Yeah, it was sitting in mothballs up in Brisbane, and my brother went up. We went to go look at it, and we bought it. And my brother, and Brian Kiohara, and all those guys brought it back down. And in fact, it didn't quite make it to Morro Bay, and I had to bring up portable generators to put on it because it had been sitting for so long. It was really hard. The fuel was probably bad. So by the time they got back to Dinko, Jordan, Wilmington, man, they just kissed the ground, kissed the dock, and said thank you. But by that next summer, my brother had and Brian Kiohara and all those kids had that boat running, and I think within that first year, they pretty much paid for itself. It was unbelievable. It was phenomenal. And Butch came in after. I think he was after. Well, actually,
what was Butch's last name? Butch
Harris.
Harris, yeah,
but
Harris.
Billy Stevens ran it before that, too.
That's right.
Yeah, Billy Stevens ran it before that, and then
Billy, another great guy.
Yeah.
I used to see him at Tommy Rothery's house a lot, and great guy. Tommy's another great guy.
Yep.
And unfortunately, Butch passed away,
Yes,
right?
he
He had
did.
a boating accident, right?
Yeah,
in Panama.
Crushed, I think it was.
I think he got caught between the boat and the dock, right?
It was horrible,
which is
from what I
an
heard,
awful.
Yes. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Butch was a neat guy.
He was a good guy. Long hair,
Very
very
calm.
mellow.
I was too much energy for Butch on the boat. It was tough.
Yeah, you pushed it a little too much, huh?
Yep.
Let's see. Wild Willie, if you're on the bow, let me jump over here because we're getting so many questions, Danny.
Hey,
You're too popular
this is what
tonight.
It is, folks. I mean, that's why we're here. It's about answering your questions.
Jeff Fuchs says, funny, one of you guys will cure Thai durian smell. The smelliest fruit of Thailand. Yeah, I know what you mean. Hey, Danny, you got it right in front of you, right? Something's
go.
fishy.
That's supposed to kill it all.
Our friend Brandon was here. That's how you kill. Hey, and Jeff Fuchs says something fishy product. There it is.
There you go.
Isaac, good evening, gentlemen. Sorry, late to the show. Isaac, you are the man. So last night we did a show at Sam's over in Island Fishing Tackle. Sam and I were begging for a pizza. Nobody sent us one until today.
Well, I saw a picture,
Isaac,
right?
Isaac sent a pizza. Yeah, Isaac, thank you so much for doing that. Hey, Greg, it's good to see you, my friend. Greg Bates is on here. Believe we possibly setting up for the same, but those didn't experience the Albies back then. It was magnetic at the docks, carts full of tails sticking up, and it just turned up the energy. You know, Greg is so right. It was electric down there, wasn't it?
Albacore does that, Phil. I used to tell the people you could walk around, take a light bulb, put it in your mouth down at San Diego when all 3 landings and all you hear is boats fired up, and you put that light bulb in your mouth and it'll light up. There's that much energy down there when that happens. And you know, it's funny because out of the entire fleet, you could have, I don't know how many boats you got, but when it fired up, I could tell you which boat was what by the exhaust, by the sound.
And it was like the Indianapolis 500 or something,
yeah.
wasn't it? Because they just they'd rev them up
and you know, and that was a thing back in the day. And I used to try to get my groups to get down there an hour earlier, so we got first crack at the receivers. I don't like sitting in somebody's wake. I want to be in some clean water as I'm going out there. So, you know, that was a big thing too with us. You know, you wanted to get. It's like anything in fishing, folks. You want to have an edge somewhere, and if you could take that edge with whether it's having the cured bait, the bait capacity, getting out early, having the best crew. I mean, we worked on every. You know, and for us it was. Being fortunate enough to be teamed up with my code boat, George Mayo, we were the first ones, you know, to bring in those color scanning sonars. And man, let me tell you what, that changed the game.
Oh, 100%.
Forever.
Yeah. And some guys were reluctant to accept it at first, right?
Yeah, there were a lot. Some guys that were been around a long time. You know, I won't mention them, but
I know who they are, but my lips are sealed. I'm not saying anything.
But you know, it did make a difference. Yeah.
Greg says, it's now bluefin tuna, some yellowfin tuna. We had bluefin tuna also with big eyes in those days, right?
Oh, yeah.
Big eye bites were
and
good.
We had big eyes with albies. You know, there's a good mix. So, you know, we'll take whatever Mother Nature throws at us, and we'll adapt to it, you know.
Wild Willie says, and but let's see if you concur with him. You know, when you're up in the bow and you see fish boiling, he likes to throw an iron. What do you think about that? That does work, right?
That's a great place to do it, you know. What I do is I throw it downwind, straight off the bow, but downwind a little bit.
Yeah.
Let it sink out. Usually, you sink it out, and by the time you start grinding, you know, when it's almost directly in line with the bow, you know, that's what I like.
Fish Guy has a couple of pics with him holding 2 albies pushing 70 pounds. My God, those are big albacore.
Those are pigs.
I also have pics of a friend holding an 80-pound fish that was caught on 30-pound. Man, those are big albies.
That was amazing.
I never got close to that. I would have loved that. I would have loved to have seen it. Those wings out on that 80-pound albacore has got to be a sight to behold.
If you want to call back, was that in the channel here?
Yeah, was that in the channel, Fish Guy? It had to have been, I'm guessing, but he'll come back and let us know.
I think it was a couple years before that. I was making a shot down to San Martin. We were all by ourselves, and the whole fleet was up on the 60-mile bank. Well, this is a funny story too.
Yeah.
So we're all on the 60, and it really stunk. And I think it was one of the first years we had the boat, so it must have been like in '81 or so. And we still had the old bait tanks, which didn't have the capacity, and so I was on the 60 with George Mayo. George had the big slammer. And I said, you know, George, I think I had 3 days. So I said, listen, he says, I got mackerel. I said, well, swap me out the max for the chos, because we're going to shoot down to San Martin and go fish the yellows.
Yeah.
So we do. We're transferring all this stuff. Fortunately, it's flat calm out on the 60. And we're transferring it, and I got max in the tank. We have some chobies left over in the tank. But so I do a straight line. We're boogieing straight down for San Martin. And as we're going, we get down by the double 220s. We get a jig strike on albacore. We're all by ourselves. And so we get them in. I said, we got to go. We got to get to San Martin. We got a long ways to go.
You're straight lining pretty much.
Straight line it.
Yeah.
Put it straight line it for it again. We get another jig stop. And then these are nice. These are all nice albies, bigger than what we've seen. And then I said, we got to go, guys. So we get there in the morning, so we can get there in the morning. So we kick it. I kick it. And just before sunset, we go into a stop. And Steve Yatomi comes running out, hooks one. At the time was one of the largest albies. It was 62 pounds.
Jeez.
You know, and we went into it full-on bite on the albies. And I was just able to get a hold of my code boat, George Mayo. And I said, George, let me give you the numbers here. Come down here tomorrow. I mean, we got it. It's WFO on the albies. We're all by ourselves. Bring me bait. So he comes down, brings us, he had a slammer, brings us the bait. And the next day, I think Dean on the Cortez, I don't know, it was Bobby Allen. There's about, maybe Gary Black, I think it was.
Was that Dean Adams?
Dean Adams,
yeah,
on the Cortez, yeah. And there was only a handful of us, but we slaughtered them, you know, and we just went into a new area down below there. So you never know what's going to happen. You never know. Here we were dead set on going down to San Martin and slaying them, but thanks to, George hauling chovies down to us, we ended up finding a whole new spot of albies down there, and it was just phenomenal. Just phenomenal.
Wild Willie in '92. He's got a couple of photos. Man, this sounds good. He and a couple of friends coming home in a 16-foot aluminum skiff with albacore over 50 pounds. One of the best days he ever had. He was cleaning fish because they had so much fish. They had to cut them, to get back in. Pretty cool. I had some pretty good days on skiffs also.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's the way.
Worm King swim baits. I think that's our buddy Fish. What's up, Phil? Danny just got home. You missed Brandon's fish spray. Or he says it really works. Something's fishy. He just did a podcast.
Awesome.
You can check that out and see what you think. Fish guy, Wild Willie, I caught my two big ones. So he's talking about those fish on a 19-foot bay runner, Baja, close to Cambria, after getting called in from another guy. Those fish were out of Morro Bay. So those ones.
That's a whole different world up there, too.
Yeah. Worm King swim baits, $10, Danny. We can get a pizza tonight. What do you think?
Oh, my God. Thank you, Fish.
That's not on my keto diet, though. We'll have to get
I want to tell you something.
Yeah.
Those swim baits will make unbelievable drop baits.
Oh, there you go. You should talk
baits.
And you've seen the Worm King.
People, take a look at some of the stuff. I don't know if Fish has it online, but you got to look at them. I don't think there's anything that's a closer rendition to the real deal. There's a couple where the actual tail looks like a chovy or a little small dean, but it's beautiful, unbelievable. It's a work of art. But it also has another one that's got more of a paddle tail. I think that will swim better.
Yeah.
But the other one's so beautiful, you're gonna probably have to buy that anyway. It might catch more fishermen than fish, but you know what? You're gonna have it.
So how do you fish a swim bait for albacore? What do you do?
I fish a straight jig head, a heavier duty jig head.
They yell hook up.
Yep.
And then what do you do?
On the slide, pop it back there, right back up on the downwind corner.
So that gives you an immediate advantage? You're not at the bait tank, are you?
You don't have to mess with the bait. You'll be bit before anybody because those fish, and then make sure you're on the downwind corner because that's where the crew should be putting the bait, So you put it in there, and I would say it's going to be pretty much guaranteed.
Yeah. Do you make a long cast?
Oh, you could just underhand it.
Yeah.
Because you don't know. But I mean, and it's better to wind it back at a close distance than having it way back. But you'll just keep sinking it out till you get bit usually, and then when you get to a certain point when everybody else is firing in, you could wind,
Yeah. Can you fish heavy line, or do you have to fish lighter line? Does it take away from the?
It'll take away. Yeah, the bigger
heavier
the diameter of the line, the slower your sink rate's going to be. It's
Yeah.
just the line drag itself in the water.
So you're
But
what, 25?
Nowadays, I would say nowadays, I would actually use Spectra.
You would?
I'd use Spectra and just put a shot of fluorocarbon because the albies do not have the same eyesight that bluefin have.
Yes.
The bluefin are much more finicky about that. I learned that when we were out at Cortez.
Yeah.
Even though I made longer casts with a 9-foot rod, the short top shot, those bluefin were looking at it. But albies is a different story.
They get kind of stupid at times, don't they?
And that's why we like them.
We like that kind of stupidity.
Stupid and they're tasty, so it makes everybody happy.
Oh God, are they tasty? There's not a better fish.
So,
I love it. Mike Trunk, hey Danny, did your family sell the Mustang to Wayne Carr, or was that after you owned it? I used to work relief summers on the boat.
Yeah, it was after
Uh-huh.
we sold. Yeah, Mike Ridley ran it, but we sold it to Wayne Carr. You know.
Hey, Fish Guy's going to send me some pics on my phone. Hey, I really, really appreciate that. Can't wait to see it. Danny, you mentioned getting a tank of mackerel and fishing mackerel for yellows down at San Martin. So Isaac says, any tips on fishing mackerel? He doesn't get bit on the sardine. I don't know if he's talking about bluefin or yellows or what. I assume, I don't know. But
Yeah.
you can definitely fish heavier line with mackerel, right?
Oh
The
yeah,
bigger
definitely.
hook.
Bigger hook.
Bigger
you
hook.
know.
And
hook.
how do you like to hook your mackerel?
You know, you could hook
Those
them
two holes up in the nose?
through the nose.
Yeah.
Butt hook them.
Yep.
You know, there you could back hook them too. There's different ways. Sometimes under the collar, guys will do that too, shallow. You know, it just kind of depends. You know, if they come to the butt, depends where they're at too.
Yeah.
You know, they're boiling fire away. You know, if they're down deep, you want to maybe butt hook them. You know, if they're up on the surface, you want to maybe back hook them or nose hook them. You know, but it's figuring it out, folks.
It is, right? It's a
figuring it out.
mystery.
It's going to change every time, but you know, you have that knowledge, and the first guy to figure it out is still going to be the winner. You know.
Yeah. Phil, what boat does Danny captain on currently? He captains on the Freedman Adventures podcast
That's it.
bout.
That's it. The
That's
good
his
ship Lollipop.
There he is, right there. That's the captain's chair, Jeff.
Yeah, I hung that up quite a while ago, folks. I decided to get married and raise a family, and you know, I don't ever regret that either. You know, it's been and then from that point, I went into the tackle industry. You know,
Yeah, and we're so happy you're
and I
here
was
with
doing a lot
us.
of bass fishing at the time too, so it worked. You know, it coincided with a lot of the tackle companies that I represented.
So Joe Che used to run Pegasus, but this was on the Conquest, and
That was before that.
right.
That was
And I
after-
had a charter with him, and you
Yeah.
know those guys, you guys,
Joe.
burned out, pretty burned out. So Joe looks at me and goes, "Hey, you're driving." And I go, "Okay, no problem." And so I go, "Hey, if I see fish, can I stop on it?" And he goes, "Hey, you know, we got 100 fish on here, and you know, it's got to, you know," he was hedging on it because he's tired, right? And,
Yeah.
You know, so I'm driving, and I look off to the starboard side, and I see a frickin' foamer of Albie, and I'm like, God darn it, man, what am I gonna do here? I can't just pull him back. He'll kill me if I just pull him back. So I look at my buddy Bob Alvarez. I go, dude, just walk back there,
Yell,
drop
hook
a
up.
feather over the stern. I'm going to troll right through that thing. And if we get bit, then we have to stop, you know, and we'll just say,
Or you
I don't
could-
know.
You could have done even better, Phil.
Yeah, what?
Yell hook up, stop the boat, and then let the guys put the bait in.
That's
Your
true.
odds are even better.
That is true. Well, he got bit anyway.
Yeah, cool.
And we threw
Yeah.
on another 40
There
fish
you
and
go.
bloodied the boat up
Perfect.
again. Poor guys. That was too much. Wild Willie, I'm hoping the albacore come in close so my sons will have the chance to see what I'm talking about with the albacore. My son has a 24-foot skipjack. Now, albacore is just awesome. You know, there's a father that wants his sons to experience
Absolutely.
the magic, right?
You know, that's probably one of the best fish you could start a kid with. You know, it's not where they get finicky with the bluefin or anything like that. You know, where you have to hook them a certain way and then they get touchy with lighter line. They got, you know, they're a lot more. It takes a lot more to usually get a bluefin to go than an albie. You know, and that's a perfect starter fish for everybody. It's one of the best eating. So I mean, it's a win-win deal for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Abraham Esparza. Abraham, it's good to see you. Hey, everybody, hit that like button. Tons of folks watching the Danny Kadota show. We thank you all from the bottom of our hearts. Make sure you share these videos later on. Subscribe. Hit that like button. He wants to know he's got a 20-foot center console, and he wants to troll with the Mad Max. What kind of setup does he need? How heavy a line
Man,
would you troll?
I'll tell you, those Mad Max. I put one on one of my railroads.
Yeah.
And it with a ATD 50, and I had to push the drag up.
Really?
Well, he kicked it up to about 20 knots. I mean, that's moving.
Yeah,
but it
it is.
barely held it in there. So it's with 200 pound, and you know, there's a lot of force generated by the big Mad Max.
Yeah,
You know?
so-
it's going to depend. You know, I mean, that's if you're running for the bluefin. You know, for albacore stuff like that, you probably want to scale it way down.
Do you think
You get a
albacore
good
will
thing.
bite Mad Max?
Oh, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty
Probably,
sure you get
right?
the small ones. You get
Yeah.
the small ones. They will, But yeah, I mean, it's just matching the hatch, folks. It's matching the hatch, matching the size to the bait. The tough part, like I said, is I noticed with the big Mad Max with the bluefin, it takes some pretty heavy gear.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
a lot of drag on the big reel.
Yeah, exactly. Man, I mean, we just barely mentioned albacore tonight, and the whole thing just took off, man. Everybody is
We're
still.
hoping and praying, people. It is the magic fish that brings people out of the woodworks, and it's just fun to catch, great to eat, and we haven't seen them in a while, so it's going to definitely create a frenzy if they start popping up.
Danny, it used to be in the old days, because you and I come from the old days, unfortunately, or fortunately
Yeah.
for that matter, but it used to be, nobody even thought about albacore until the 4th of July. 4th of July hit, everybody go offshore, somebody jig across a bunch of albacore, and we'd say, hey, the season just started. And that's before we had all the technology that we have now.
That's
so
true.
my question to you is, what's the earliest we might see albacore being taken? Or what month is the earliest? Did you ever see them in April?
You know what? We didn't even look.
Right.
We didn't even look. We didn't even bother looking.
You're fishing the
I
Coronado
didn't-
Islands,
I didn't-
right?
I didn't go down to San Diego till, about the middle of June.
Yeah.
But I can remember 83 El Nino, okay, when they said the oceans are going to die, and all of a sudden we got this cold water move in overnight, and being on the backside of Clemente, and I think I remember mentioning this, but I could, with that 10 dB, I'm shooting over the island, and I'm listening to stops on the mushroom and the butterfly.
Yeah.
And this is early June. And I couldn't wait to get back down to San Diego, and yet I had several weeks.
Yeah.
All our trips are still booked here at 22nd Street. We had weeks to go, but it was driving me nuts. So we don't know. And we don't know if you could have caught those fish prior to that too. It just
Yeah,
so
right.
happened. So we don't know. It's Mother Nature. I mean, we don't call the shots. We just roll with it, with whatever we're given,
Daniel says, it's great to hear you guys talk about the old school days of Redondo sport fishing. I used to run the new Sunbeam with Gordy catching bait for the fleet. Yeah, I remember those days. Jim Myers was there. And did you work out of Redondo, Danny?
No, I
or
never
you-
did, but I used to fish out of there.
You fished out of there a lot.
As a little kid.
Oh, really?
With my grandparents going and barge hopping back
Oh,
there,
right, yeah.
barge hopping.
That was
Started
so
out
much
and then
fun.
Going barge to barge, But
What were some of the extraordinary, or what did you catch on the barges when you were fishing?
some of the biggest stuff I remember catching were like halibut.
Yeah.
They had to, and that was a chore to gaff them or to net them to get them on board a lot of times. But generally, when the game fish came about, like I remember getting a bluefin in the canyon during a red tide, and that was more when I think I was in high school, and that was I'm looking at this red tide. I go, you got to be kidding! No, put a chrome sinker and a number 6 hook and put a chovy down. I go, well, all right, and getting bit up and down in a red tide, but it was the water was clean below the red tide.
That's crazy.
Surface, but yeah, I mean, there's things that you look at and you go, that shouldn't happen, but it happens. So
Yeah.
that's why you go fishing, folks.
That's
you
right.
You never know what's going to happen. You
Rick,
just don't.
Rick Slater says, who knows the anchovy stats? Remember when sardines were almost extinct? Man, I remember being a kid and seeing a sardine in the bait, and I was going like, what is that?
Exactly.
What is that? Because we had chovy for years and years and years, and then
Phil, I've always believed that everything cycles. It's on Mother Nature's terms, not ours. So we just take and run with what we get. So
Jeff Fuchs says he used to catch tons of mackerel, buckets of them off the Newport Pier fishing a sabiki rig. Mike Trunk, fish trap, 5-inch Channel Island. Chovy was the hot ticket. He's talking about swim baits
Getting
on the
them on the
slide.
slides, yeah.
Yeah,
On
that
the
is so much fun, isn't it?
yeah, absolutely.
Isaac says, any tips on fishing the slide if they have a record to come back? Any tips on fishing the slide if they have a record to, I guess, fishing the slide? Any tips? Let me ask you this. Are you a guy that says you can pin a dead bait on, go in the galley, and then when somebody else hook up, you go back, drop your bait,
I've
just
watched,
let it go
I've
back
watched
on the
those
slide?
guys over the years, and I've seen it work. I don't think that the albies are the smartest fish.
Right.
I think that's why it's another good people pleaser, is that it's good for everybody. Everybody has that ability to catch them, So, I think that's it. I personally, no. I tell the guys, wait. Let's put the bait on them when they get on the stop. Let's get these things to the boat. We'll get everybody bendo.
Yeah, right. I mean, and it gets incredible. Mike Morrison is here. Do you want to say hi, Mike?
Hi.
Oh, that was Hardy.
The great manager of 22nd Street Landing always adds to any show. Do you want to say anything? Do you have anything to say about your fleet or anything?
I just want to know what's an albacore?
We do that occasionally. It goes like in cycles.
People are asking
then
what an
after a while-
albacore is right now.
When was the last albacore caught?
Man,
out
I
of
can't even
a
remember.
LA-based boat.
LA based, because last year
I
San Diego had one.
I think we got to go to almost like 84, 85.
Oh, really? I think there was some fish in 2012.
Was it? What?
Maybe. I don't
That's
know.
right. I wasn't running boats
Yeah,
that
I
late.
think I heard the same as
Not a lot, but a little bit.
Yeah.
oh, look, it's me.
Hey, there's Mike Morrison. Yes. Yeah. See, we've got you on all the time. All right, let's go back to the board here for a second. Mike, I hope he's going to stick around for a little while. I was 8 years old when I caught my first albacore, says Wild Willie, out of Port San Luis. Overnight trip. $100 took me a month to save for that trip back in the early 70s. I mean, here's a guy. This guy's awesome, Wild Willie. He's all over this albacore thing, and he was willing to work and save his money just to feel the magic.
Yeah, I don't want to hurt your feelings, but I got a picture of a brochure from Point Loma. 1966 Yellowtail Derby was $15 for yellowtail and 20 for albacore.
Oh, my God. Mike, have you ever caught an albacore?
Never.
Have you seen one?
Nope.
That's crazy,
Yeah,
man.
you will.
Yeah.
You will.
One in a can.
You've seen them in a can, everybody. All right. Enough of that nonsense. All right. Peter says, you think albacore can get to Tanner or Cortez Bank? And if your question is, do they get on Tanner and Cortez? I've caught them out there full speed. I'll tell you what, Danny, see if you agree with me. You know, that line, that cold water line keeps moving down. It's below San Francisco. It was up at Point Blanca last year. It's moved 400 miles down almost now.
Yeah.
If it shows up on Cortez, the albacore, it's game on, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's game on for,
yeah. I
for
mean,
all these guys.
It's
for,
a hop,
for-
skip, and a jump to the inner banks.
Where were we catching them in the 80s?
You're getting them down. Well, usually a lot of that stuff starts below. We go to for some reason we'd see them on the inner banks, or they come out from the outside 500.
Inner banks
come
right
in.
off Ensenada.
You come in, you get them there. The mushroom, butterfly, the 60. They'll be out there. Oh my God!
Yeah, I
You
thought
leave
I
my
heard your
phones on?
phone. I thought you turned it off. What's wrong with you?
This is my daughter.
Yeah, your daughter doesn't watch the show?
No.
Oh
That's
my
it.
God, this is terrible. Hold on, everybody. I bet it's
We are on radio, daughter. Yeah.
no, we're not
You're
on
gonna hurt your
radio.
fishing
We're
time
on
now.
TV.
On TV. Excuse me. Goodbye. I'll talk to you when you get home. Bye.
All right, let's get. She started screaming there.
Yeah, good.
Acme.
Let her scream.
Still have my rule,
Kids.
my rule. Still have my Newell P 220F and Saber 196.7. Love that rod. That's a good one. In case the Albies come back, bring on the pink Andy. LOL. Yeah,
Okay,
right.
well,
and a
here you go.
196.7, man. That's a nice
those,
light rod.
Those are all classics in their day, folks. But let me tell you, the newer tackle now, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
You have bigger drags, your casting ability with a little machine reel, and you have something. If you know how to fish, if you can fish a graphite, you're going to put a fish. You'll cast further, and you'll put a fish on quicker. If you know how to short stroke, keep the angle down on it. So there's a lot of different things, and pink candy is great, but now we got fluorocarbon, that you could put a strip on that'll help you. You have, with albacore, there's a light ring gamakatsu that weighs like a number 4 hook with the ring, weighs 350 milligrams. Phil, that's what I started with when we fished those bluefin out of Tanner. And I ended up straightening those out. Of course,
Oh, my God.
Those are not albacore-sized fish, but for chovies, one of the best hooks you can have. 350 milligrams, where a standard 9174 mustad weighs 450 milligrams.
Wow.
So you and I can't feel that 100 milligrams, but that little chovy can.
That's awesome. I still can't get over the fact that Danny's daughter doesn't watch the show.
Unacceptable.
Yeah.
Unacceptable
And,
is
and
right.
She used to fish with me.
Yeah, what's up with that?
She got into. She's engaged now. Yeah, she cut my hair today, so I maybe she was looking for. I left with.
Oh, she wanted to hear that? Yeah, I told you looked handsome, so there you are.
Yeah.
Wild Willie. This is a guy after my own heart because I can tell a story about a 4-year-old kid too. Wild Willie, my oldest son, was 4 years old when I took him out on an overnight trip on the Outer Limits. I took Patrick. Patrick caught his first albacore when he was 4. He sat on the deckhand's knee on board the Tracer with Steve Thompson, and he sat there, and I told him, do not turn the handle for him. Let him do it. And he turned the handle, and, of course, who was the deckhand? God, if he's listening tonight.
I wonder now. Okay.
Girardi. Alan Girardi, or his last name was Girardi, and he ended up decking on the Searcher, but he got Patrick through that battle, and he got the nice albie.
Now, he was on the Outer Limits. How long ago was that? Because my brother's been on that boat forever.
Wow, Willie, when did your 4-year-old go on that overnight? What year was that?
Steve.
Jeff Yeomans. Michael Morrison knows Jeff. 540 Slingers. Good evening, Phil and Danny. And he would have said Mike if he knew Mike was here. Going to enjoy the show during my dinner break. I'll catch the complete show tomorrow morning. So Jeff is such a great guy. He's always here. April the 16th, he'll be over at Marine Stadium from 8 a.m. until 12 noon, and they'll be doing one of their casting
awesome.
instructions. He does such a great job,
awesome.
man.
That's cool.
Sean Roberts and I are going to go if he's not running.
Oh, Sean Roberts from the Pride, Captain Sean Roberts, and Mike Morrison are going to be there if Sean doesn't get out, right? Yeah. You got some wind or something coming up?
The 16th of Sunday?
Yes.
We'll give you an update.
All right, Mike's going to check that out right now, and we'll have that.
He's in from a day and a half. He'll be there.
He'll be there. So Sean Roberts will be there from the Pride, and so will Michael Morrison. 2 more reasons you want to join the 540 Slinger guys. Isaac just sent us a $20 bill. How do you like that, Danny?
You're the man.
Gosh darn
Thank
it,
you.
you are the man. And earlier today, he sent Sam De La Torre a pizza because Sam and I were so hungry last night. I was going to scrape the cheese and the pepperoni off the pizza and eat that on my keto. But nobody sent us one last night, but Isaac sent Sam one, so you're the best. Thanks, you guys.
Have you guys ever been to a dueling piano bar?
Yeah.
So, like, you can turn the song off or on. So the highest bidder, we either keep going or not.
I like that.
That's how we should. That's how you should end the shows.
Hey,
Oh,
yeah,
my
I
God.
like that.
What a concept that is.
Man, that's a great idea.
Do we
Uh-oh.
go here all night? Like
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
That is such a good idea.
Can you guys
It is.
remember, guys?
Like that.
I used to run boats, not now, but I used to run boats. I could stay up pretty good. Yeah. Take those take those watches.
Hey,
yeah.
come on, Mike.
Well,
People
it's a-
like listening
It's a
to
dual
me.
torture deal, back and forth. You
I'm
know.
going home.
No, you're not. Where are you going?
I got 3 kids.
Can you give me a back rub before you leave?
Well, you should be
Just 2
thankful you're
seconds.
here. You got
I'm
3
all
kids.
tense here on my shoulders.
I got 2 kids and one calls while we're on the show.
I just dig in on my shoulders for 1 second here. It's going to kick me. Yellowtail 69. Mike, take care. Yellowtail 69 Wasabi. You guys remember Red's Tackle Shop in Redondo Beach back in the day? Any history on Old Red? I do remember it.
I remember, but I didn't shop there. But you were right there, right?
Yeah, I didn't shop there that
Redondo
much
boy.
either. I went over to TC's all the time. Don't ask me
TC's.
why. But
What-
TC's Bait and Tackle. And there was a Mexican restaurant, La Penita.
Was
Oh
it-
my
Pete
God,
was-
they had the
Pete was
best
down
chili
there too,
rellenos.
right? Pete was down there in Redondo Beach too, wasn't he?
You mean Pete for the tackle box?
Yeah.
I think he was down on.
Oh,
I
was it
don't know. I think he was toward Manhattan Beach, right? Wasn't he with Jerry Morris down at the tackle box for a while, and then?
Yeah, he's just one of the great real guys.
Oh my God,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
absolutely. Bob Osborne worked for
why
him
am I-
for
yeah.
many, many years. So he worked for Jerry Morris, I should say. I remember Red. I can tell you what he looked like. I think he had those overalls on all the time, right? Yellowtail 69 Wasabi. A big, obviously red because he had red hair. And as I remember, he had a lot of surf fishing bait. But I would go over to TC's, and it was just you walk right across from Redondo, and you're in TC's, and it was kind of like walking into kind of this alternative universe. It was like really weird. It was during I think it might have been the Iranian crisis or the hostages Remember that?
Yeah.
And then Reagan got those hostages out.
Yeah.
But he had, I mean, and I don't know if this is politically correct. It's the truth. It's what happened. I remember as a kid walking in there, and there's a huge poster of the Ayatollah Khomeini of Iran, and it was a dartboard. And these guys are throwing darts at it. And I'm like, oh, man, yeah. I mean, because that was a big deal back then with the hostages and everything. And there's a movie, I forget the name of the movie, but there's a great movie about how they got those hostages out of there.
It's just amazing.
Somebody will put that
when we
up.
Look at all these tackle shops in the South Bay, going into Gardena with Arts and Yo's and all these guys, and you know, how much developed,
Yes.
you know, sport fishing developed, you know, tackle wise and everything from, you know, the South Bay here. It was amazing.
Absolutely. Hit that like button, share these videos, and subscribe. We appreciate all your great support. Isaac, thank you for throwing in a $20 bill. Worm King, thank you so very, very much. Speaking of the Iranian hostage thing, I was at the Forum in Inglewood, and it was the day that the hostages got out, and the word sunk out that the Canadians were involved in that whole thing. And if you see that movie, I can't remember what the name of the movie. What is the name of that movie? It's a great movie. Anyway, the Canadians helped to get those Americans out, and guess who the Kings were playing that night? They were playing the Montreal Canadiens. The Canadians took the ice.
What?
There was a
Standing.
30-minute, it makes you want to cry, doesn't it? A 30-minute standing ovation. They could not start the game.
That's hockey for you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because the Canadians were so involved in getting our American. It makes me want to cry.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah,
no,
my mom went to that. She was a huge hockey fan, but she was over going to the. She went to that for that.
Oh, my
she was
God.
anticipating something like that, and man, that place. Oh my God.
Unreal.
Yeah,
Unreal.
I bet Pete Demers remembers that.
Oh, I'm sure Pete does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here we are. Isaac, no offense, but shouldn't we be enjoying the fishing? We have last year, Dorado bite, yellowfin. Hello, daughter. Oh, he's saying hello to your daughter. Hey, no offense taken. We're just talking about albacore and the good old days, Isaac.
Yeah.
And,
We'll take anything.
we'll take the Dorado. We'll take the bluefin.
We really don't have a choice.
I'll take the yellowfin croaker.
Exactly.
And the over-under line tonight is, or the bet is, will Philip make it out to the beach to record Grunion tonight? And what's your bet, Danny?
Ooh. Let's see.
You want me to tell you what time I got
would
up
say
this
that-
morning?
Yeah, but I'd say the odds are pretty good because it's not freezing cold. I
Yeah.
mean, hey, I'm
But
back in
it's-
shorts and my flip-flops. I'm in my element.
I got to get back.
Right now.
I'm going back in my shorts
there
tomorrow.
you go.
But
There you go.
I got up at 3:30 this morning, and
That's a
so
long day.
that's a little And let me think here now. The run is at 10 tonight. It starts, which means they never show up till an hour after. That's 11. We're going to be done here. I'll be home at 9ish. I don't know, man. I'm going to try. Let's put it that way. All right. Hey, Peter. Peter Cepeda. What about El Nino? Maybe yellowfin down at San Clemente Island. We do have an El Nino. Peter's absolutely right. Brewing down around the equator. That means warm water. You just never know what's going to happen, but it
really
does
don't.
mean those kinds of
You
fish.
just don't know.
Yeah.
You just don't know. That's the thing. Yeah, El Nino. I mean, regardless, we went from an El Nino to an albacore year within months. So you never know what to expect. Never know what to expect. Mother Nature dictates all that. We can't call it,
Absolutely.
But we'll take whatever you give us.
Well, yeah, exactly. Rick Slater, Danny, respect your knowledge and your Hawaiian shirt, too. He likes your Hawaiian shirt. Get Phil to make a white Friedman Adventures hat.
We got a black one.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah,
well,
we got
we'll
a
make a
black
white
one.
one. What the heck?
Yeah.
They'll get dirty, though, right, with all that fish blood.
Well, think about that. You could sell more of them that way.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. I like that. Isaac says, Ethan, my son was 5. We got bluefin and yellowtail. He's totally hooked.
That'll work.
Yeah, nothing better than fishing with your kids, right? Your
Nothing,
daughter?
Nothing.
You
The
fish.
one that just called me
Yeah.
a little while ago, I took her on the Outer Limits, and I saw a thing about it in Outer Limits when I got a picture. She must have been 7,
Yeah.
but she got a yellowfin an Albie and a Dorado on the same day.
Really?
Yeah, Alexa, she was young. And when we got back to Seaforth, we were with my brother. For her, it was phenomenal. She was young. Somebody got my catalytic converter, so I fired my Sequoia up and boom. You know
Oh,
what I
somebody
mean?
stole it?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
And so this is like 11 o'clock at night. We run from Mission Bay back to San Pedro, uncorked. And I'm going to tell you what, we woke up a few neighborhoods coming home. Let me tell you, it was unreal. And I told Alexa, hey, when we were kids, we wanted our cars to sound like that.
Yeah.
They're going, no, they didn't, Dad. I said, yeah, we did.
Absolutely,
You know?
right?
Yeah.
That's so funny that you mentioned that because it's so true.
I'll never forget that trip. Yep.
All right, let's see. Peter says he's excited. Oh, hey, Mike. He's excited for his True Line charter. Mike took off, but yeah, we wish you the best of luck on the True Line. Love fishing that.
Absolutely.
4x4 Monster. To answer your question, Wild Willie, it was 96. I had a harness and leash. If I wasn't tied to the rail, I was tied to a deckhand, I guess, right?
Yes.
Daniel says, just fishing in Hermosa Beach back in
Pete.
the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was Pete.
That was
That's
Pete.
right. He's still there, right?
I think so, but he's up the street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
He's up the
He's on
street
Artesia? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
he's
so.
more in town, yeah.
Wild Willie 96. He caught 2 yellowtail on his own. I taught him how to use my 500 Jigmaster. I rigged up a harness to reel and D-ring leash. Hold on to him. The deckhand, let him reel them in on his own. I'm reading like a moron all of a sudden. I don't know why.
You know.
Argo is the name of that movie where the hostages get out. Thank you, Dave.
Okay. There you go.
That's a great movie.
But-
Have you seen that?
No, I don't think
You
I
should
have.
watch that. You'd
Okay,
love
I
it.
have
Yeah,
to
it's
look
good.
up. I have to look it up. You know, we talk about it's pretty much what we started with, Phil.
Yeah.
500 jig masters. You know?
Yeah.
And you know, we have a drag that big, and I went through the rendition with going to the Bard Hole show in the early days, and pen nut. You know, they had a plastic spool and metal spool, and it wasn't until Newell spools that we had something that could hold up and cast at the same time.
Yeah.
But you know, I mean, nowadays I have to tell you, there's so many more reels that will outperform with the bearings and with the drag systems. You know, they're just a phenomenal amount of reels, and many that spans all the different budgets too. So you can go with machined aluminum stuff, you can go with cast things, but all of them are very, very efficient now, and the efficiency on the drags and everything else are much, much greater than back in the past.
Oh, absolutely,
I mean,
right?
Jigmaster got us through back in those days, but I'll tell you, I could not go to it anymore because I know the difference in efficiency and how much quicker you can put on fish or how much further you can cast. You know.
Can you imagine the
machine reels.
damage these guys are going to do on these albacore stops with the new gear? It's going to be insane, isn't it?
Unbelievable. Yeah, unbelievable.
What is the limit on albacore? I hope
I think it's
10.
5.
Is it
No, I think it's
5?
It used to be 10, but I think they reduced
It used to
with
be
5.
no limit.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
we did a story, Pete and I.
Yeah.
Because both of us are competitive.
Yeah.
Never do that again.
You filled up
thank
a
God this
truck
filled
or-
up the truck, and it was a pain in the behind because we had to buy ice and do this and just to babysit them to give them away. We lost a couple days just babies. I said, no more.
Yeah.
So that ended that. That was a good thing. That was a tough lesson, but we learned.
If you get 5 albacore on a trip, that's a lot of
That's
meat,
fine. Go
right?
back and go fish again. Yes.
Yeah.
More than enough.
Yeah.
But Pete's very competitive, and I'm competitive, and we did something really stupid. We just filled up the back of a truck. That was not smart.
That's funny, man. I love it. All right, everybody, hit that like button, and tons of people watching tonight. Thank you for Danny. We both thank you very, very much for joining us. Hit that like button and subscribe and share. We would really appreciate it. Blue skies. Hey, Danny. What I thought was cool was watching Yo's wife wrapping rods back in the late 70s and early 80s. That's Ruthie, right? Because
Ruthie.
same name as
She
my
was
wife.
awesome. Yes.
Yeah.
Ruthie was awesome.
She wrapped rods?
Oh, she was the person. You know, Yo was the name, but Ruthie did the rapping.
Really?
Ruthie was really good.
And what was her work like? Was it
Oh, it
exquisite?
was beautiful. You know,
Yeah.
they had a certain rap, and then when they put your name on it, you know, it was done a certain way. It was, you could tell by looking at them. Every tackle shop had a different signature on it, right? And you could tell by
Yeah.
looking at the nameplate area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, those were
And
special
it was
days.
beautiful because they used to charter the Mustang, so it was cool for me, and we had bent over backwards. There's a lot of great fishermen that came out of there, the Jimmy Lou's, and I can't even mention.
I think I
there's
saw
so
Jimmy
many
Lou
guys.
here the other. Is he still around?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
we
he.
saw him at the show.
What a
and stuff.
nice gentleman.
Oh, and you know what? He's one of the greatest fishermen ever too.
Really?
Oh, I have to tell you, Jimmy must weigh 100 pounds soaking wet.
Yeah.
And he was one of the first guys to get a 300-pound cow on a single speed.
Wow.
So it was all technique. And he used to fish with me every single week. He fished with 2 different groups on Sunday. And he would put his tackle box on the starboard side of the engine hatch on the very back end. And I would just go over there, walk over there every week, open his box. And in the right-hand corner, he'd have a new bait. How many anglers do that every single week?
That's
Phil?
putting in a lot of
You're
effort.
talking about, well, he does his homework.
Yeah.
He's, like I said, he's one of the greatest fishermen I've ever met, And again, he was one of the first guys to put on the 300, especially with a single speed, weighing 100 pounds, sopping wet. Right? But we have some funny stories, and I mean, he was knowledgeable, but he had some funny. I remember him showing how to super glue up leaders, so he's super gluing these leaders, and all of a sudden he goes, and he can't get his fingers apart because the super glue.
Oh my God.
So every now and then, folks, if you see Jimmy Lou, give him the high sign.
I love it. That's funny. I'll do that next time I see him.
Super glue Lou is what we called him.
That is funny. Blue Sky says, too bad that Yo and his Ruthie are not around anymore.
Oh, yeah.
Peter says, what about bluefin fishing at night? What to expect and how to fish them and what equipment to use? Danny, you're fishing those big
you're
knife
fishing these
jigs,
big
right?
fish, knife jigs. You want to fish probably your heaviest gear. They're not line fin. It's matter you get on the right spot of fish, they eat it. You just want to have heavy enough tackle to give you a chance because these things aren't getting any smaller, folks. Even a couple of years ago, we're going into the stops and hanging a lot of 200s and stuff like that, and you just don't know. I mean, I had an ATD 50 with special gears, 4-to-1 gears and 1-to-1 gears in this 2-speed.
Yeah.
And I stuck a fish and I could not even move it, so I dropped it in low, and I started to move it, and this thing just took straight off for the surface, but I had to kick it in high. By the time I caught up with it, and I put a lot of pressure on it and pulled the hooks.
Oh, wow.
So, and then, Glenn Allen, a friend of mine that was bit right next to me, his went in at 198. But I mean, these are all like nice fish. So, we're fortunate that we have this tackle now.
Right.
But they can, even at that point, they could, humble you very quickly too. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. And Peter, one thing that's really important, Danny, I know you'll agree, when the captain says drop, drop.
Oh yeah, because they've got it on the meter.
Yeah. And so don't fool around with it. And that colored line is going to help you out a lot, right?
Phil, we did that. I don't know if you people saw the rendition Phil did at the Isoline booth that Wendy came up with this, with a colored line where it meters the fish for you without it. I mean, I did it the hard way. I walked in the backyard and I did it by every 10 fathoms I put a mark, And so it was a lot more work putting 1 bar, 2 bar, and then it's harder to read at night. The colored line is definitely the way to go. It was a great idea, Wendy, and you're way ahead of the game. It's cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. For sure. Fish Guy wants to know my phone number. Hey, I'm married, Fish Guy, in case you didn't know. 657-227-6459. All right, Peter's back. Do you think the bluefin are going to be back on Tanner this year?
Oh yeah, I'm sure they are.
Really?
I'm sure they will.
They're going to follow that same path?
I don't as long as the bait's there, I think from what I gather, they're breeding there. If they're dropping their eggs and breeding there, they're going to be there.
It makes sense, right?
Yeah.
There's been squid out on the bank also, hasn't there?
Exactly. I think all year. So yeah.
That feed is the important thing, right, Danny?
No reason for them to move anywhere.
Joe Sirwald. Joe, good evening to you, my friend. Evening, Danny and Phil. With all the snowpack in the Eastern Sierra, what are you thinking of the year ahead over there? Do you get the chance to get over there much? I know you spoke of this in the past, fishing the Eastern
I
Sierra.
used to. I haven't been up in the Sierras recently.
Any plans to
it's
do
gonna
it?
yeah, we usually take the kids up. I mean, this year I think it's going to be a lot tougher. I talked to my brother. I went up to go look at some of the ski areas, but I know that at my uncle's condo, like it's got the garage level, then the main level, and then the second floor, and folks, the snow was to the top floor. So you're talking about 20-something, 30 feet of snow. I think it's going to be a little while before we get into that. And I saw that Crawley is just starting to break up now. But the problem is the traveling to and from. A lot of areas through the desert, I guess, we're getting flooded. So you got to just be careful going up. And like I said, whether it's ready to fish or not, I would wait and check on conditions because it gets dangerous. I got to tell you, when I was in high school, and this is a long time ago, this is 50-something years ago.
Right, I know.
Right?
I'm same way.
Excuse me, but I can remember skiing up there and going through, the snow was high like that, and I get a little claustrophobic when you're going through, it's almost like a tunnel, but it's cut away, and it's like 15 feet here and 15 feet there, and you think if it ever caved in, how long it would take to find you, You'd be a popsicle. But I mean, yeah, so I wait till it thaws, gets a little bit better, unless you're a skier. But even then, I think they're trying to dig out. The lifts are even under,
Absolutely. Eyes on the Water wants to know, besides an Abbott, what reel would you suggest for a dedicated yo-yo rig? What do you like to fish the yo-yo with?
A lot of beauties. I see.
Trinidad 20, Peter says.
I had some of the prototypes that Toyo Shimano gave me.
Uh-huh.
And, oh my God, when we first had those Trinities, the guys had no idea what those were. But I'm going to tell you, I slayed with those things. And I put it through a smoke test that you wouldn't believe. But, yeah, that was phenomenal. Still is, the high gear, but it had power.
Yeah.
See, in the past, you could have the high gears, but it didn't have the cranking power. This had both.
Yes.
So it was a huge, huge step up.
Yeah, and why don't you just, because I think we do have new guys, and some people, they're like, what is yo-yoing a jig? What is a yo-yo iron? Could you go through that a little bit?
It's a heavy iron that when you're fishing vertically and you meter fish down at, say, 20 fathoms or so, what you're doing is you take this heavy iron. There's a heavy and light. The light iron is for throwing on the surface when the fish are boiling. The heavy iron, the yo-yo stuff, we'll call it, okay, it's for dropping out. When you get on a spot, say they'll tell you, the fish are at 20 fathoms. With a lot of my line with the Spectrum, I have it marked. So, okay, you figure 120 feet. So I have one mark at 60 feet, and I have two marks at 120. So you get it down, account for the angle, so drop out a little bit more, and you're now in that zone. And it's bouncing it around a couple of times and grinding fast. If you don't get bit, drop it right back down.
You don't come all the way to the surface, do you?
You don't have to. Not if you're metering fish down there. You want to keep it in the zone, so you don't have to do that wind all the way up, and just keep playing with that, that zone till the captain doesn't have them on the meter anymore, and then you'll move. Or you'll hook them, and then you're in them.
Yeah, right.
Hopefully that's the case.
Joe Sewell wants to know if you take your grandkids to fish freshwater fish like the Eastern Sierra, or
I have. Oh yeah, I have in the past. I usually started them at Irvine, but now that it's closed down, it is open to public now, and they do stock it a little bit. But and I'm contemplating taking some of the kids over to Santa Ana. Next week. Phil will all be out there.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. You're bringing the kids?
Time. Well, I'm gonna see if they're free. Their problem is they're all playing softball and sports. Now.
Yeah.
So, but maybe even Gia. I don't know. She's 3, but man, I couldn't pull her off that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. Yeah, bring her.
She might be the perfect one. Yeah.
She's a lot of fun. Current Jam. Thanks, guys. Is 300 yards of 80-pound hollow braid enough for bluefin tuna? 300 yards of 80-pound hollow braid.
Depends on the size you hook. It's amazing, but on the bigger reels, you do want to fill them up, folks, because there's going to be, the fish don't get any smaller, and I mean, with fish that are in that 300-pound class, we're probably going to see some that are substantially bigger this year.
Like 400?
I would think so.
Even bigger, maybe?
Who knows how many we're going to land?
Yeah.
But I think there's, I'm sure there's a grade. Just by the amount of time they've been here, and then fattening up on all the squid and all the banks, I got to believe there's going to be some in that class.
Wow, I can't wait, man. This is going to be an incredible season.
So-
we have all these variables that we don't know. We don't know what's going to
It's
happen.
called fishing, Trill.
Yeah,
And you just don't know. And it's your prep work, doing your homework, that's going to make a difference when you get on the boat. So, again, when you're talking about is 300 yards of 80-pound enough? Yeah, it's enough for most of the fish. But you hang one that's 350, 400 pounds, maybe not.
yeah, right.
You're going to want 130 pound with 200 pound leaders and stuff, So, and you're going to probably need more line. Just hard to say.
Right. Wild Willie says, my girlfriend was using the blue camo 100-pound with 80-pound leader. She hooked into 2 nice 90-pound bluefin.
Those are nice units, and that's a great way to go. You've got a good, ratio with the line class and everything for abrasion and everything else, because the bluefin have teeth, so it gives you enough power to control that fish with that too. And you got to have, the rail rods and stuff like that correspond with it too. Keep in mind and make sure that she's keeping that rod angle down, because that's where you're going to get your most pressure out of the rod. I see too many people high sticking, not knowing that you got 1/10 the pressure up here than you do if you got it pointed at them. So keep that rod down. You're going to put the fish on a lot quicker, folks.
All right, Ken Ward says, thank you, Danny, for the truth about the crap we used to fish with. I'm linking to this video to all the Newell fanatics telling newbies they need a Newell to be in the game. Don't miss those days.
Yeah, they were those days. Look in those days, when Carl came out with the spool, that changed the game. And I told the story about, going to a pen booth was when I was a little kid, when I was at the Fred Hall at the Great Western Center, and talking to them, and they would not address our Southern California market. But, we have the fishermen that come from the aerospace industry, Hollywood, JPL, our fishermen are not going to settle for that. They're not going to settle for the answer that's all you get is a plastic spool and a metal spool that won't cast. And so lo and behold, thanks to Carl, got aluminum spool that you can cast and not spread the spool and have that pressure to do that. But now it's gone further than that. You've got reels now that do the same thing, but the gearing and the gear ratios and everything else, they got much more power, bigger drag. So, the Newell is a great reel. It changed things. It's not a reel I'd use right now compared to what's out there and what's available now.
Yeah, it was part of the progression to get to where we're at.
Go to the tackle shops that you go to, like we talk to Sam a lot over at Island Fishing Tackle.
Yeah.
Go to your local tackle shop, whoever they believe in, they'll push the Daiwas on. I mean, they're all great reels. They're all definitely much better than the old Newells we used to use. They're in the past. If you're going to use it, it's more for a nostalgic deal. But as for efficiency wise, I would say no. That's why these new reels are the way to go.
Joe Valerio. Joe, good evening. Thanks for being on the Danny Kadota Show with us. I had Bobby at Johnny's Sports Shop mark my 130-pound hollow core every 100 feet. He also tied a small piece of braid on the mark so I can feel it and use it another way to count. So he's got that also.
That's a great deal. I just, having, knowing them, I'm sure they do it to where it fuses in where you can feel it, where it doesn't obstruct anything. Where
I'm sure they do. Yeah.
I'm sure,
Way to go, Bobby, at Johnny's Sports Shop.
Absolutely.
Approved by Danny Kadota.
Oh, Bobby's mom and dad, they were one of the earlier tackle shops in town, starting in the 50s, where they started doing a lot of those specialty type deals, and they had it, from trout to tuna,
Awesome. Kim Smith. Kim, her and Dan sat with us for hours after our last event. Hey, Kim, bacon, steak, cheese, eggs. What's the other? What am I missing? Bacon, cheese, steak, eggs, butter. Yeah, I love it. I'm with you. They're coming home from the boat. They're loving the show. They're listening to it in the car. And Kim says, nice shirt, Danny.
Oh, thank you.
Everybody likes your shirt, man.
It doesn't have any fish on it. I was used to always having
I thought those were fish.
Well, maybe it could be.
I love it. Hey, Fish Guy says, Phil, I sent a pic of my buddy holding one of my fish caught on his bait runner back in the day. Hey, Fish Guy, thank you so much. As soon as the show's over, I will check it out. I might even post it on my Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or all of those. So I appreciate you thinking of us. Isaac says, any tips on catching big eye tuna?
The first tip is they got to be in the water that you're fishing, So it's been a while that I know that we've had the big eyes around.
Yeah, it has been.
And,
That's been a long time.
I can't even
I
really
can't
remember,
either.
And it was a little more difficult to decipher between the bluefin and the big eyes. It was the fin length that had to do with the
Striated
one had a
liver.
One was a smooth. The yellowfin I think was a smooth.
Right.
And I think the
big eye had a striated liver. Like
so
who's?
there's a lot of little things, but yeah.
In other words, it could be a yellowfin tuna almost, right?
Oh yeah.
Here's what now. This was a marketing gimmick, but guys in San Diego, when I was decking down there, used to say, "Hey, if they get over 50 pounds, they're big eye tuna. It changes the species and it gets everybody excited."
Well, people were pumped.
Yeah.
People were pumped.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yes.
Yeah, it changed a lot of stuff.
Big eye. That was so cool, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
I remember those days. I remember calling Eddie McEwen and saying, "Eddie, I promise you I'm not going to put this dope out, but I'm on a private boat and I need to get some numbers from you on where this big eye is biting." And he gave me the numbers, and man, they were on our swim step boiling, man. It was out by Clemente. I forget where exactly.
And the big eyes bit a little different. They weren't as finicky. We got them on the corner. We got them on the corner a lot where they come, and it didn't matter. You could hook them on the heavy line. We just weren't getting them because we didn't, the biggest reel we had was a Penn 6/0 newelled out.
Yeah.
But it still had drags this big, Phil. So, it was, your limitations
Yes.
by what you had the hardware there,
100%.
I can remember hanging the whole boat, and you only land a couple of them, because we just didn't have the tackle for them at that.
It was crazy, right?
Yeah.
I know, exactly. Hey, Danny, Fish Guy wants to know, are Semper rods going to be sold at Island Fishing Tackle?
One day, hopefully. But,
Yeah.
Here's the deal is we negotiated at the last show we had down in Orange County, the SCS show. We finally got a supply of guides that we got committed to. And that's been a tough deal. As a industry, worldwide industry, we allowed one place in China to manufacture all the hardware.
Yeah.
And so we were at their mercy. And so, shame on us. Shame on us. And so hopefully, we can get some domestically made or made down in Mexico maybe, but we got a commitment and we're going to be starting. In fact, I'm going to mention I love the product. They're called Sea Guides.
Yeah.
So we got a commitment from them to supply us. So we should get back in business with them. And then we got some other changes going on in the future too. So
Yeah, and I'm sure you'd love to be working with Sam if you got the rods.
Oh,
'Cause
absolutely.
he's such a good guy.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys in town.
Hey, Sam, did you save me a piece of that pizza, by the way? Just scrape off the pepperoni and the cheese, and I'll eat that, okay? Just save that for me, will you? Wild Willie, I think you're going to... Wild Willie's been contributing all night long. You're the man, Willie. Thank you so much. And I think you're going to like this comment. He says, for me, the rule of thumb, never raise your rod above your stomach.
Willie, I got to tell you, this is one area where being short is really beneficial to me because I could put it under my arm and have it at this angle. And, I think you've probably listened to me telling you how the angles equate to the power. So when you see these guys high sticking, I'm just going to tell you, they're stupid because you're getting 1/10 the pressure up high than you are if you're pointed down low. And it just makes sense. And the thing is, maybe those guys don't understand, but that's been quantified on a scale. So we know exactly what it takes to get to that point. So there's no reason to be up here silly. You high stick, you've got a much greater chance of blowing up the rod with 1/10 the pressure. Does that make sense to you? I'm a rod builder, a rod manufacturer. Do we want that? No. My idea is to teach you guys how to fish more efficiently and put that fish on quicker, which means if the closer to pointing that fish, the more pressure you're going to take out of it. And we brought this analogy in many times, but I'm going to do it again. You see these guys doing the slow pitch, right? And have you seen the tips on them?
Yeah.
They're very whippy.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
But then they shut off pretty quick. So what happens when they hook them? They're putting the rod straight down, which is what I've been advocating for a long time.
Yeah.
Because what's happening is you got so much tip, you're not getting any lift from the tip. And so what's lifting this fish? The no stretch in your braid and your reel is what's bringing that fish in, and that slight bend that you're getting on that rod because it's exerting its maximum pressure at that lowered angle where you're pointing at it. So this is the same thing with any other rod, with any rod that you're going to normally fish conventionally or not. Put it on the rail and angle it down, and you're going to get your max pressure. I watched a thing with Joe Russo doing the thing with the railrod.
Yeah.
When you're standing up and that rod is pointed down, that's your premium angle for getting your maximum pressure at it. You get it up high, and you drop off tremendously in strength and the amount of pressure you're putting on it. So no reason for that, folks. And you got a greater percentage of break in that rod, too.
Hey, you guys, we really appreciate, Danny and I both appreciate all the questions and the participation from the Friedman Adventure family. You guys are awesome. Joe Surwald, PBs are what keeps us coming back all the time. Personal best.
Absolutely.
I fish freshwater 2 to 3 times a year. I get a little tired of catching bait fish. I'm a saltwater junkie now and forever. Really looking forward to fishing SoCal. I kind of am too. I can't get into the freshwater thing that much. A little bit.
Joe, it's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. Right? Forrest, but no, it's true. I mean, I loved my bass fishing, and we got a chance to talk with Rick Rover about that. It was a very competitive thing for me because I had a lot of saltwater skippers like the Sansa brothers, Taka, Ray Monte, all these captains that we competed off the water on the lakes with, But, as far as, real competition, it was on this salt pond here, right next to us. And that's what drove us. Although, there was a lot of things that we implemented and that we brought about through the bass game. We were fortunate that we had a little more background on electronics and we knew there was the thing that when you see tournament bass guys nowadays, they never knew there was current on a lot of these lakes. Where you can't know there's current if you're floating around with a trolling motor because you don't hold a constant. So by double anchoring and holding a constant, you can assess the current and determine how you're going to set up on a particular spot. So you have to set up with it. And as it turns out, on the spots where I hooked my very biggest fish, there's something very consistent about it. The current came into these spots and it split on a point. Current went one way on this point, went back into a cove, or went another way. So on the spots that kicked out the very biggest spots at Casitas and Castaic, that was very true.
Wow.
So that was something that I'm
you got to pay
letting the cat
attention.
out of the bag, but that's what determined where some of the very biggest fish were caught.
Man, you did leave the cat out of the bag.
Yeah.
Let me tell you.
That's why you guys are tuning in.
That's right. Joe Surwald said, there was a couple of big eyes caught off Fort Bragg last season. It's pretty crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sal Garcia. Sal, welcome to the show. Good to see you. Hope you're having a good night tonight. What's your favorite way to take sheep's head? What do you like to do, Danny? I like, I like being in some shallower water with a sliding egg and a live squid and a big old hook.
We did.
What do you think?
We did catch a lot of sheep, but I never specifically fished sheephead. For us, it was almost like I'm not degrading, but it was like a joke.
Yeah.
A guy took one and we but there's some guys that loved eating them. I just, that wasn't me.
Yeah.
If I was going to eat a fish, I'd probably want a calico.
Yeah.
Know? But no, it was great meat, whatever, and
they pull hard,
they pull
man.
hard.
When you're in that shallow water, they pull really hard.
Yeah.
They're fun to catch.
This was not my cup of tea. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, I like that.
We did catch a lot of them, though. Yeah.
I had one that was, I forget, Sal, I want to say 25. It was a good one. It was on the Amigo, and we were in a really windy day, and we were fishing 60 feet of water, and I just live squid with a sliding egg and a 5-0 hook.
The sliding squid are good,
yeah.
Lead heads, too. Lead heads with squid is what we caught.
I hung that fish, too, and I could tell it was a decent fish, and then I saw...
I got this.
Yeah. Mark Paisano stuck his head out the window, and he goes, whatever it is, it's pretty big. And he came down and gaffed it for me, so it was a nice fish.
Yep.
Really, really cool. Rick Slater, the big eyes would dive deep and die, fought harder than other tuna. You think big eye fight hard?
When we were catching the big eyes, we were compromised by our equipment. We were using Pen 6/0, newelled out maybe, but they were still compromised by, we didn't have the gearing, we didn't have the reels that we're using now. Now I could use my little accurates that like we used on our freedom
Right,
trip, and,
right.
and they generate more power and drag than some of those big old 6/0s. They had a drag like that on the 6/0s. They were
Yes.
big, had the line capacity, but you just didn't, you didn't have that lifting and pulling power that the reels do nowadays. So yeah, that part has changed. The technology, because of that, quicker reacting, faster recoiling graphite, no stretch with the with the fluorocarbon and the spectra. So there's a lot of things that when you combine them all, they add up, and all those things, give you a huge advantage now fishing.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. All right. Let's see. Where are we here? Mark, I think, is the next guy. Danny and Phil, I'm on the pursuit tomorrow with Gus and the crew. They are deep dropping to 500 feet. Oh, man, there's going to be some big reds and rockfish. Caught any advice on rigs and line? I'm bringing a 2-speed with 500 feet of 80-pound braid to 100 feet of 50-pound mono. That sounds about right? And a 2-hook rig.
Yeah,
and what do you need, a pound of weight to fish that, or?
Oh, I would say at least that.
Yeah, right?
A long ways down.
That is, man.
Yeah.
There's some denizens of the deep that will come out of that, won't
Yes.
they?
Yes.
Mark, save me a fillet, man. Come on. I'll be down here tomorrow if you save me a fillet.
That's
Or two.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah. I like it, though, man. You do.
Yeah,
Do you
yeah.
like rock fishing?
Well, I do, but I think
At-
it's changed now.
At your age, you mean,
Yeah,
you're saying?
yeah,
Yeah, I know.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It seems too much like work.
Yes. Exactly.
All right, Mark, good luck. Have a great trip. Current jam. Would you suggest a low angle on a spinning rod?
The problem with the spinning rod is lines on the lower side of the rod. It's
Yeah.
on the bottom side. So, if you have it down on like a, well, I think the thing like with Joe's
Did you see
rig-
Joe? He did
with Joe's rig,
did you see
could
he
put
did the thing with
the
the
rod
spinning?
here and the line underneath
Yeah,
it.
right.
And just be aware that it's there,
Current jam. Check out the video we posted yesterday with Joe. It's called the Rail Rod Assist Pipe, and he shows how to do it with a spinning rod. So
Yeah, it's hard to do it on
the
a
rail, though.
on a
It's
sport boat,
impossible
though.
to do, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah. And then the last thing you want to do is turn it upside down, because then you'll have a crew member throw you off the boat. So don't do that.
Absolutely.
Tough. It's very difficult. It's not the most efficient way to fish a big fish. It's great on some of the smaller fish, And I know when you go around the country and around the world, there's still a lot of spinning rods. In Southern Cal, it's been kind of taboo. I mean, the equipment now is so much better, but the fact is that we just, we have things that are inputted in our head, And granted, we know that these new spinning reels and stuff, they're powerful, light, and if you have the guys to fish them with the right, the right rods, it's great. But yeah, you're limited with a few things to do. Like I say with the rail, unless you build a special, apparatus for it.
All right, very good. Hey, hit that like button, everybody. Subscribe, share these videos. Danny and I deeply appreciate you being here. Big crowd tonight, and we completely agree. Maybe we'll hit 2 million views tonight, Danny. Who knows? Wild
Bring it on,
Willie,
guys.
Wild Willie's opening up a can of worms. I already know what the answer is, but here it is. What's Danny's thoughts on the new Rockfish regs?
I
Danny.
have no idea what the new rockfish regs are. I just hear people grumbling about it and how
They're
stupid
protecting the copper rockfish for one thing, right? So what do you think about that?
Well, you know what? I think anything done and instituted from a biologist, I don't buy. I've had that problem, and my sea daddy, Russ Iser, had that problem with them 30, 40 years ago. They don't have the time on the water. They're not using common sense. How much do you really know about denizens of the deep? We don't know because we're not there. I mean,
So you're saying these guys sit in their ivory tower and make these pronouncements, and then
yeah.
they don't have
I do.
any
I do.
real life
Well,
experience?
they're drumming up grant money and things from universities,
Right.
And I saw that a lot of years ago, and I'd go up and go to a hearing like with Russ Iser, and Russ would call them out at that point, and we'd find out, we'd ask them how much time they had on the water, and they'd go, Well, none really. And we go, well, it shows.
Yeah.
Because it does. It makes no sense. When you're out there all the time, how do you release something that's coming out of 100 fathoms without damaging the fish?
Right.
Now,
We can do that, right?
we can do that now. We have, it's on the outer limits with my brother when they do the rock cod surveys. They have a decompression chamber on it where they can decompress it, and they have an apparatus now that you can send them back down and turn them up. But, common sense will tell you that if you're seeing cow cod in 30 fathoms when we never saw them in 30, but had them at 100 plus, usually down that range, that you got an overpopulation of them because they're traveling up in areas to search for bait because they're probably so populated there because they haven't been targeted that, you got a great population of them. I had real problems with stuff like that.
You had that conversation. I was over listening to you with Mike Morrison, the manager
Oh.
of 22nd Street Landing. And
Absolutely.
what did Mike say? He said that he went up to one of the meetings and he offered the boats to biologists, and he said, I will give you 10 spots on every boat I have here for the rest of the year if you'll come out and see what we're doing. And am I right? Didn't he say that?
Mike is
and he said
absolutely right.
crickets.
He's-
Nobody wanted to
he's
do it.
Absolutely right. And this was done 40 years ago by Russ Iser when I accompanied him to UC Santa Barbara, and they're talking biologists that are looking for grant money. And these kids have no time on the water. They don't understand our fishery, but they're out there generating grant money from the state because the states is as clueless as the universities.
Yeah,
and I know I went to UC.
Yeah, yeah.
And,
Maybe more
it's about
clueless.
them. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
about them getting their grant money. Doesn't have no, and I would question them as far as how much time do you have on the water. They go, well, none. I said, well, it shows, because you don't understand what's going on here, But common sense will tell you now that they have decompression machines and they can decompress these rock cod, put them back down, put tracking on them. Okay, I'll give you an example. I may have even mentioned this before. There's a cow that was caught on the 43. They
Yes.
brought it up, decompressed that thing,
Yeah.
put a tracking tag on it, put it down. Well, the 43 is 38 miles out of San Diego on the course land of the east end of San Clemente, right? So, you look at the shape of a cow cod, kind of like me, right? Doesn't look like
Doesn't have as pretty a shirt as you do.
maybe not, but yeah, it's got this. So anyway, I'm not going to do wind sprints, and I'm not doing the 100-mile run. But you look at those fish and you go, okay, what are they designed for? You look at a tuna and you go, yeah, that fish will go from Japan back to California and back again, right? But you look at a cow and you go, all right, no, this cow is going to stop for a cheeseburger here at Tanner. He's going to stop for, he's not going to go that far because he's not shaped for swimming, right? So when we ask some of the people that were in the industry, we say, how far do you think that thing would go? And I would look and I go, maybe the east end of Clemente, which is probably another 20-something miles, or at that outstretch, maybe the 60-mile bank,
Yeah.
or the 43, or
Right.
something like that, maybe Tanner or Cortez, maybe. But a week later, this fish was outside Conception. I would have never thought that.
Yeah, that's a long ways,
So
man.
we as fishermen don't know that. I can guarantee the biologists don't have a clue. And not being facetious, but I'm just telling you the truth. They're more interested in generating the grant money. They're about the truth. And that's the problem I have with that. And that's where our conflict lies. We're used to speaking the truth and seeing, what we've seen in real life as opposed to trying to generate money for grants. And I think we're seeing this throughout politics now with the university systems and everybody else and the indoctrination.
Indoctrination centers.
So-
I mean, you and
And I don't
are
want to
on
get
this-
political, but
I
it's
don't
true.
either, but man.
It's true, and my sea daddy Russ Iser would go and call BS to all those guys to their face, and guess what? He was right.
Yeah, I
was
know.
right.
I know. And you got a whole bunch of guys who are agree. Joe Surwald says, I absolutely love Danny's view of biologists. Wild Willie, I agree 100%. So a lot of guys. All right, Israel de la Cruz. Great guy. Love him. Izzy, I hope you're doing good tonight. Danny, he's putting you on the spot. Who's the best bass fisherman in SoCal? Who is it?
Right now?
Yeah.
Without a doubt, I'd say Butch Brown.
There you are, Butch Brown.
Butch has been doing it forever. He's a student. Let me ask you. Let me ask the audience. How many bass guys? Now I wouldn't do this. How many bass guys have 4 boats? Because the state of California will not let you go from lake to lake.
Oh,
So unless
wow.
you have them tagged at different areas to fish those different areas. And I fish with Butch. Butch and I fished the night tournament.
Yeah.
And what Butch and I figured out was we didn't know anything about night fishing. I mean, we were left because we stunk, But yet, at our, if I was fishing the upper lake and Butch was fishing the lagoon or anywhere, I don't know a better fisherman. And I'm not just talking about bass fishermen. I can remember when he started tuna fishing, he started with Taka's group, and he was under the tutelage of guys like Corky Yokoi, Bobby Ito, and these guys with Taka's group. And I think I got a 300-pounder the first trip, Phil.
Really?
Yeah. So,
wow.
it's not luck. Butch does his due diligence. He's an astute student of any fishery. And my hat's off. I think he's the best, and not just knowing Butch all these years. So they call him the GOAT and greatest of all time, and I got to agree with it because he was on the lake every time when I was coming down from the main lake. I'd always see him down in the lagoon every day. He put his time in. And that's what it takes, folks. You want to be good, it's that time on the water.
Absolutely.
And nobody beats him, trust me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Isaac wants to know, do you think these deeper depths for rockfish will be better this summer as the water temperatures rise? Probably not make any difference at all, right? Or
probably not. And to be honest with you, being at that depth and it's not something that I don't think and maybe it's a good thing that we'll never know. It gives them a chance. Because the minute we figure that out, we'll probably wipe them out. Some commercial fisher would come and figure it out and go to wipe them out. You just don't know. That's what happened in the past with with the dragging and stuff like that.
Right,
I used to see that up Northern California, off Morro Bay. And
those draggers?
The draggers. Oh, my God, did they rape and pillage
and
those spots. They cleaned off spots completely.
And Danny, the damage they do to the habitat when they drag. That's probably the worst,
exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Exactly. So, I could agree with some of the things that we're doing now. Not everything, Some of them are definitely politically driven through the biologists and things through the university system. But, I'm for protecting it. But I'm common sense protection, not...
I'm waiting for a biologist to get on here and chew us out.
I double dog dare you. Let's go. Bring it on. Find one and send them to me.
Oh, boy. The gauntlet has been thrown down here.
Exactly.
Wild Willie says, I caught a juvenile sablefish and a biologist didn't even know what it was.
If you take that sablefish and make it with a miso sauce, let me tell you, man, miso butterfish. It'll melt in your mouth. I mean, we used to have them in the channel here years ago.
Oh, yeah. Full
most
speed.
Of that stuff, and you couldn't figure out why most of that stuff all took off to Japan,
Yeah.
Got caught. But you can, in Alaska now, they'll have trips, and they'll do it with electric reels, but just to go catch limits of sablefish because the quality of the meat is just phenomenal.
Yeah.
And it melts in your mouth. It's just phenomenal.
There was a year where we had 3 straight months of wide open sable fishing on the barge in Redondo. You remember that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Not even knowing what it was at that time.
I know, right?
Yeah. I look now. My God, I would do that over anything.
Oh, God, yes. Man, that was a lot of fun. Danny, we just hit 2 hours on the show. It doesn't even feel like it, does it?
Holy smokes.
Man, what a night.
Boy, does it fly.
Been a great show.
We got a great crowd. These guys are intuitive. They know the questions, and, I'm not going to BS you, but, I'll tell you what I know. If I don't, I'll tell you that too.
That's why they love your show so much. Current Jam, I have to run. Thanks, guys. We appreciate you both. Have a great night. While Willie's laughing, I think about the biologist. And while Willie says Butterfield miso black cod.
Doesn't get any better.
Yeah, right on. Ops Butterfish,
We're
right?
going to have our good buddy.
Yeah. We know who we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
He claims he can catch them right out here, right?
Yes.
We should go with him
and
do
God,
it.
We got to do a trip.
And do a video.
And have Andy cook it for us.
Oh, wait a minute. That would top it off.
Oh, my God.
Do we say his name or do we keep it secret?
Yeah, we can. We'll have Andy.
No, I mean the guy that's going to catch him.
Oh, yeah, no.
Should we say or keep it secret?
We'll keep that secret.
Until we catch him.
Yeah, until we catch it.
Yeah, you know who we're talking about. You're listening out there. All right, let's see. Israel De La Cruz. Phil, how about bringing a biologist on your show to answer some of these questions? That for sure will hit the 2 million views. I think it's a great idea.
Bring him on.
There's a guy, what is his name? Milton Love. And he's a fisherman and a biologist. And I got to be honest with you. Every time I have a fish that I don't know what it is, I send it up and boom, he had done it. But he's a fishing guy too.
Well, that's
So
good
he likes to
because
fish.
that, already that shows an effort, and having part of the credibility is understanding our industry.
Right.
And that's the problem we've had with many of them in the past. I would ask them questions and they'd be stumped, and I go, well, he's college.
Yeah, this guy seems he's like every time
No,
I
that's
talk to him,
it.
he's on his
and I would
game.
give him respect for that.
And he's written, and so I was supposed to go up and interview him and do a podcast in Santa Barbara, but I got sick. That was when I had that, like I was feeling crappy a few months. Well, you were sick at the same time, remember?
That's
I
right.
thought I screwed you up, and you go, no, I wasn't feeling good either. So, yeah, I got to go see him because he helps me out of a lot of
that's
jams
great.
all the time.
Absolutely.
So we'll see. And you're not. You're talking about the biologists you've dealt with and the ones that are know-it-alls and are not open to listening.
And we've hit them on different levels, Phil. I was on the advisory board for the, fishing game for inland waters, and when we were first addressing the quagga mussel deal, we put together, something that we thought would work, by building a ramp where you can drive through it, a concrete ramp, and you pour solution in it. You drive your trailer, pour all the solution through, kill all the mussels as you leave in the lake. Now, that's why, guys like, Butch has to have 4 boats at different lakes because you can't take that same boat and go fish a lake.
I know.
I used to jump from, if the weather was bad at, Castaic, I'd pull it out and we'd shoot up 126 to either Piru, but usually Casitas, because Casitas had the Florida strain.
Yeah.
So we would hop around different lakes. Well, you can't do that anymore because of the regulations.
Yeah.
And it's because they didn't listen to us with this quagga mussel deal years ago when we had that advisory board, and we told them about running a solution on the ramps when you leave the lake, so it would clean your system out, and kill everything in it.
Yeah, yeah.
But what do we know?
I know. It's so
Now you got to buy 4
ridiculous.
boats.
I'm telling you, it's
do it.
ridiculous. It's so silly, isn't it?
It is.
It really is.
Absolutely.
And it's regressive. It hurts the little guy. What guy on a
Absolutely.
fixed income can afford 4 boats?
And the thing was, like, for us to stay on top of those fish when we're chasing those world record fish, sometimes you would have to hop from Castaic to Casitas.
Yeah.
I did that, the one time. But I was fishing with Dave Williams, who used to run the New Loan back then, and this is with Don and Connie Sansom.
Oh, right.
When they were
I
serving.
remember
That's
that.
a long time ago.
Yeah.
And so, we started out fishing at Casitas, and then we're going to go fish the Kachuma the next day, because they hadn't fished Kachuma, so I was going to show them Kachuma.
Yeah.
And so we did. But, you couldn't do that today. You'd have to have another boat to go fishing.
Oh, my God.
So it's really stupid. And you leave it to the politicians in California, and these bleeding.
Calm down.
Okay, I'm not going to say it.
Go
But
ahead.
anyway,
Say whatever you want.
No, but I mean, all they need to do is implement common sense.
Yeah.
But that's pretty hard at that level.
Common sense is a very rare
It's because
thing
they're
nowadays.
college educated.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Elitist.
Yeah.
Right. That drives me crazy.
Yeah.
That
So.
I don't like.
I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, don't get me started on this arrogance, and I'm not a big fan of arrogance.
No,
And,
common sense. We need to just go back to common sense, Phil.
yeah.
That seemed to work all these years for us.
Do you remember when you used to have a
country.
discussion and you would say something and a person would respond with a data point or here's what I now they respond with you're a homophobe, you're a climate denier, you're
Oh, yeah.
and it's like wait a second that's not an argument.
Well,
Can
no,
we
especially coming from somebody that doesn't know which bathroom to walk into.
there you go, man. I mean,
Sorry.
yeah.
I'm not going to pull any punches. You and I are the same.
I know.
We speak the truth.
I'm telling
sorry.
you, what is going on to girls' sports with some of this maniac stuff. I don't know how we're getting onto this all of a sudden, but I mean, it's just it's despicable.
That's exactly it. I fortunately I don't think we've seen it yet in our sport, hopefully,
Yeah.
and hopefully will stay out because, we treat everybody I saw some of the greatest gals that fish on our boats, and they're phenomenal.
Yeah.
And the guys will go, she got lucky. I go, no, not when she's kicking your butt every week.
Yeah, right.
Has nothing to do with luck.
Yes.
And we had several women that were like that, and there's several that are out there right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
I give them it's a different perspective, and that's coming from my way of viewing it as a skipper, and we watch them. They do their due diligence. They're actually better casters. They're in tune with their tackle. There's a lot to it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Joe Sirwall, thanks, guys. Always look forward to Thursday evenings with Danny. Back-to-back great shows. Looking forward to next week, guys. Wild Willie says sable fish 900 feet to 1,500 feet for mature fish. That's right, but the guy we're talking about says he gets them in 300 feet. That would be like the barge.
Yum,
I don't
yum.
even think. Yeah, we'll let you know, Wild Willie, how that all works
and
out.
they were back in the old days, Phil.
Yeah.
They were.
Yeah, they were.
Because there were a lot of them that were caught in the channel here.
Yes.
Just offshore here.
Don't they get them out there anymore?
They do.
Yeah, right? I'm sure they do in that
do.
deep water, right?
Now you could pay $1,200 to go catch a limit in Alaska now.
Yeah, I
That's
know.
what they
I
do.
know, exactly.
Whatever it is.
4x4 Monster, that would make it a comedy podcast if you could get a biologist on here with Danny. I'm all about it. Fish Guy says, Dr. Milton Love wrote a book on rockfish, didn't he? He certainly did. I think he had another book, and the book is funny because, my son already stole it from me, Philip, because he loves studying about fish and reading
Yeah.
about fish.
Yeah.
But he showed me a diagram, and it was like all the parts of the fish, and then it pointed to a part of the fish, and it said private parts instead of. So, the guy's got a sense of humor. He's a funny guy.
That's great.
Acme, be sure and hit the like button, guys. Helps the show. It really helps the show. Moves us up in the algorithm. Joe Sirwall, common sense is a flower that's not grown in most gardens, Danny.
Yeah, it's pretty well, it's definitely out of California now.
I know.
It's not,
Wild Willie, common sense doesn't follow the money.
That's
Biologists are about the money. What do you think about that? Is that true?
That is true.
And Israel says, Lori Heath is a phenomenal fisherwoman. She's definitely putting time on the water with great fishing knowledge. There's a lot of women out there
absolutely.
who are great fishermen, Danny, right?
Absolutely a tremendous amount.
You fished with them, right?
Yes.
Me
Yes,
too.
They used to come on the boat, like I said, and they would go, she got lucky. I go, no, not luck. When she's kicking your butt every time she comes out, it has nothing to do with luck.
100%.
Get with it, guys.
100%.
Open your eyes.
Well, Danny, I don't know about you. We
Philip,
might
we
be able to
survived.
get one more question in here,
Okay.
but while we start to wrap it up, it's been a great show. You've shared so much knowledge again. I learned something every time I'm on here with you, Danny, and I can't thank you enough. Every time I see that windsock on the screen behind you, Dan, my mind goes to Zuckers.
Oh, Zucker?
Zuckers, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Oh, Zucker, yeah. Well, that was Billy Miyagawa and Johnny Lloyd. Yeah.
Joe Sirwall, that's why we call ourselves anglers. Blue skies, Dan. The glass rods bend so easy, but the composite rods just seem not as friendly.
It's not about the bend. It's about the recovery, the recoil on them, folks. You want to put a fish on quicker, it's going to have something that's going to be... Listen, a simple analogy. Here's a diving board. It's made out of fiberglass. 6 times heavier than graphite. So when you jump on it, how many have been on a fiberglass diving board? Because of the weight, it takes a long time for that to settle down, to dampen, right?
Yeah.
So that's energy that's wasted. If you did it out of graphite, it does a quick recoil. So now you're getting much further distance, but you're getting a faster recovery and recoil.
Yes.
That faster recovery is not letting that fish get its head down. Whereas when it's recovering like this, and the fish is swimming like this, if it has its head down, takes a kick, because your rod is mushing, it's going to take line on you. But if it's recovering very fast because it dampens fast, it never gets a chance to get its head. So as it's coming up, it's planing up. So when it's kicking, where's it kicking? It's kicking up at you. So it's a matter of you keeping up with your reel. And if you have that heavy pressure on it at that lower angle, all you got to do is turn the handle, especially with the 2-speed now.
Yes,
That
perfect.
gives you an opportunity to catch fish that you didn't have in the past. And Phil, that was a perfect example is that Freedom trip.
Yeah, absolutely.
They wouldn't eat the 40. We had 30. Yeah, you're going to lose some fish. They got chewed through or got straightened out the hooks. But you know what?
You got to get a bite.
You got to get a bite. And I wasn't intending to catch fish that size with 30, but they couldn't eat 40. If you got 30 skippers that couldn't get bit on 40, that's all you're going to use.
Yeah.
You got to use what they'll bite.
And for the final comment of the night, I can't think of a better comment. Danny, stop at In-N-Out Burger on your way home for Grace.
That's my granddaughter.
Yes, I know. So you better stop.
Yeah.
Gail
Yes,
Kadota.
Warden.
Do you
Yes,
know?
Warden.
Hey, everybody. I can't thank you enough for being with us. I'm going to let Danny sign off on the show, but just for me here at Freeman Adventures, I'm so honored to have Danny do this show every week. It's so great to have him here, and we thank you all so very, very much for being with us. It means a lot. Danny, I'll let you sign off also, my friend.
Hey, love you guys. We'll see you next Thursday. We'll be at the Redondo Rod and Gun Club, too.
That's right. We'll be at
You're
the
going to get us a live deal. We'll have a live deal going out there, and then I think we're planning on being out at the Santa Ana River Lakes.
On the 15th.
On the 15th.
So the 13th, Danny will do a live show at the Redondo Rod and Gun Club. You're welcome to join us. If you want any info on that, just send me a text, 657-227-6459. The good news is, if you can't be there, we're going to live stream it, and then we'll live stream Bill Wilkerson right after it. So it's going to be good. Danny, all these guys, man, look at them. They're all thanking you for
guys.
such a great show. So many people watching
Think of your
the show.
questions for next week and or the week after, and write them down, and I'll answer them the best I can, folks. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great night, and we'll see you soon.